Welcome to stage one of the inaugural virtual Tour de France on Zwift with some of the finest bike riders on the planet with making history as they battle for the yellow jersey here for the very first time on Zwift. And that is what it is all about. The virtual maillot jaune. Every jersey that you'd normally see in the real world Tour de France will be here on Zwift as well. The green jersey, the polka dot jersey, and of course the yellow jersey. Points awarded out on the course. We'll go through that and a little bit more detail for you. There is the polka dot jersey for the leading climber. Points awarded on different categories of climbs. Today it's all about the third category, Ascent. There's 4 of those on the course today. But we're sticking in Watopia for the first 2 stages. Another jersey to look out for is the best young rider. And we'll go into a little bit more detail about the whole ethos behind the racing. It's all about the team classification and the best young rider jersey. Anybody under the age of 25 years of age will qualify. And there we go, an explanation of the team classification. So the most combined points from all of the different classifications will mean that the team with the most amassed points will be the leading team. And of course, we've got a Twitter poll as well for the most aggressive rider who'll be awarded a red jersey. So much to play for out on the road today. And as I alluded to at the top, the first stage is here in Watopia and the women will be racing. They are the all-important power-ups: aero, draft, breakaway, lightweight and invisibility. There'll be lots of those. We'll explain those in a little bit more detail as we move through today. 4 laps of this course. There are 3 opportunities to actually get power-ups, and here are the teams that are riding. We have Tanya Erath there. We've got Chloe Dygart, the current time trial champion of the world. Drops Valcar, a regular team racing on Zwift. FDJ, Sunweb, Trek Segafredo, the legendary Elisa Longo Borghini. We have Arkea Samsic. We have, as I say, in total 16 teams made of 4 riders, with 63 riders in total, and that is the route that they're facing today. It looks rather pointy, doesn't it? A rather aggressive profile there. There's a sprint each lap, and there is a Queen of the Mountains each lap. There's 4 laps on this course, totaling just under 37 kilometers, around 9 kilometers per lap, 100 meters elevation in every lap. And the riders are underway already here in the women's race. They got away about 3 or 4 minutes ago, and already there's a few riders just out the back, as you'd expect. Actually, normally a very, very fast start here in Zwift racing. And alongside me for the journey through over the next couple of weeks for the entire 6 stages of this virtual Tour de France is Hannah Walker. Hannah, I am so excited to be able to commentate on the first ever virtual Tour de France. It's kicking off already, but a couple of thoughts. This is going to be great, isn't it?
Yeah, this is going to be fantastic. The race has such prestige. Everyone around the world globally knows what the Tour de France is. And yeah, here we are in the very first virtual edition. So as you said before, just it's already kicking off already. Fife Georgie from Team Sunweb and Emily Moberg there of Drops coming towards the 4. So we're already going into the first sprint map.
Yeah, the first sprint comes only after 2.78 kilometers, and there we go, straight across the line. It's Tanya Erath, of course, winner of the first ever Zwift Academy, who took maximum points there for Canyon Shram. She was 3rd in the tour, the last Tour for All race. She's getting better and better, and there is one of my pre-race favourites. That's Leah Dixon riding for Team Tibco Silicon Valley. Chantal Black, the former world road race champion. This field is absolutely stacked. And as we said, it's going to be action all the way, because there's 4 laps of this Watopia Hilly course. We have a Queen of the Mountains every lap. We have a sprint. And there's 3 opportunities, Hannah, isn't there, to take power-ups. So it's worth explaining now. Can you just run us through exactly what these power-ups are all about and how they can affect the gameplay?
Yeah, so you can just see the little bubbles above the rider's head, so you can see blue ones and a ghost. So these power-ups are a very important part of the Zwift racing. And, they can change the outcome of the race. If you're new to the Zwift world, there's lots of different types of power-ups. So we have the lightweight feather, which reduces your weight by 9.5 kilos for 15 seconds. So that's very useful for when you're on the climbs. You can also have the draft boost, which increases the draft effect you're experiencing by 50% for 30 seconds. So when you're in the bunch, in the peloton, perfect one to be using. You also have the aero boost, which is the little aero helmet, makes you more aerodynamic. So that's reducing your CDA by 25% for 15 seconds. We also have two relatively new power-ups, which is the burrito, which makes you undraftable for 10 seconds, and invisibility, which makes you invisible to all the other riders for 10 seconds. And those last two are event only. So, some of those riders might not have experienced those power-ups when they've been on Zwift previously, just, out doing their training.
Exactly, with the power-ups, a key component part of racing on the Zwift platform. There are many, many similarities that come across from the road, of course. The riders do get drafting, so if they're sitting on the wheel of another rider, it reduces the effort they have to put out by around 20 to 30%. And if you sit right in the middle or towards the back of this bunch, as you can see, that already is reduced. There's lots of riders who are struggling to stay in contention. Very, very fast pace indeed. You can just see the bottom right-hand side of the screen. That is the speed, 48 kilometres an hour that these riders are putting out at the moment. It is Leah Dixon pressing on at the front. Just to explain some of the metrics on the top of on this particular screen here, the riders, that's the top 10 riders in the field at the moment. It's their watts per kilogram. And of course, then the gap between the riders behind and this group out in front, everybody is still there. The elapsed time is on the top left-hand side. That's 6 minutes and 38 seconds in. 32 Ks to go and 5 Ks down. And this is the first picture-in-picture that we're seeing here. Every single rider will be able to see. We'll be able to see where they are at home, their pain cave set up, for want of a better word. But this really is something quite special. And before we get deeper into the race, just to explain, I think it's important to explain a little bit more about the way this works. Basically, it's all about battling for the yellow jersey. But although there's a lot of prestige in winning a stage, the more riders you get nearer the front of the field, the more points you can amass. And basically, at the end of today's stage, the team that have amassed the most points will move a designated rider, a predetermined road captain, into the Maillot Jaune. Basically, there's 50 points on offer for first place today, down to 25th place with 1 point on offer. So team tactics and making sure that you usher as many riders into the front group as you can is going to be vital. And then, of course, we have the Queen of the Mountains classification, where every time over a designated point on the route, there will be points given for the polka dot jersey. And again, the points can be taken by any rider from the team, but it's the team that gathers the most amount of points by the collective riders that actually will lead that classification. And as this is the virtual Tour de France, it wouldn't be the virtual Tour de France without the coveted green jersey as well. And that is for the team that gathers the most points. On the intermediate sprints, there are points for the first 10 riders, 10 points down to 1. And then at the finish line as well, the same points are on offer for the first top 10 riders. And again, the team that amass the most points will move a pre-designated rider into the lead in that classification. And the same can be said as well for the white jersey classification. The first 10 riders across the line at the finish, under 25 years of age, will qualify for that classification. So very, very similar to in the Tour de France in the real world, but it's all about the team here, working as a team and communicating as a team. And that, I think, is going to be really key to how this kind of pans out and how the riders adapt to Anna.
Yeah, it certainly will. And I think, teams need to go in with a little bit of a game plan, what they, hope to do, and then they can hope to execute it on the road virtually. They can also keep in touch with each other, through various communications during the race as well. But it really is about, looking after yourself, but also looking after your other teammates and, trying to amass as many points as possible. We've got a nice little group here. A variety of different teams. We see Kristen Faulkner here from the Team Tibco Silicon Valley. So she's the rider that's in vision, or we're following at the moment. You just see her side-by-side picture there, Matt.
No, right on cue there. That was well produced there. That's Kristen Faulkner. Looks like she's riding pretty comfortably at the moment. They are her stats, her metrics, putting up 410 watts at the moment, 360. I mean, any of you who've ridden with power before and ridden on Zwift know that that is very, very punchy indeed. 105 RPM, that's her revolutions per minute. So she's spinning those pedals quite nicely, quite a high cadence. And then the all-important heart rate there as well. So she looks as if she's kind of at around kind of her threshold at the moment, or just below threshold, 173 beats a minute. And the next metric was her speed as she moves around the peloton. Now, I know, Hannah, you've been out on this course. I went out on this course for the first time, actually, yesterday. I broke my rib the other day, went out on a little gentle ride. And it is a really kind of punchy course, isn't it? But it's not often ridden in this particular direction.
No, it's not. So, generally it's always ridden in the forward direction, whereas today, in today's event, we're doing the reverse. And it is, I think, actually, this way round is actually the harder way. It's not got some huge climbs, but it's also not flat by any means. There's quite a few little draggy sections, which, really do take the toll after four laps of racing, and especially with the speeds that we've been seeing. I mean, if you look now at the bottom of your screen, you can see the gradient of 6%. So, sometimes even as we start to get towards the top here of the climb, even though it looks flat, we're still climbing.
We are indeed, and we've just come towards the top of this climb. That is the Queen of the Mountains, the first Queen of the Mountains here on the virtual Tour de France, and we'll get confirmation of who took that in a moment. The points on offer, this is only a Category 3 climb, and I think it's Josh Loudon who took the points there. Only the first 3 across the top of the climb would take points there, so 3, 2 and 1 on offer. Tomorrow we have a bigger climb, so we've got it's a Category 2, and then we'll talk about that on another occasion. We do got Mont Ventoux on the penultimate stage, but this is the final sprint. A couple of power-ups being used there, and a little bit, you can just see, it looks like one of the aero power-ups being used just over the top, and a very appreciative crowd over the top, jumping up and down, and cheering these riders through. But it looks to me, we had 63 riders start out, and it looks to me as if this field already has whittled down to maybe 35 or 40 riders, just showing that they really went very, very hard from the off.
Yeah, certainly. And, we had a few riders pushing the pace at the start of the race, notably Dr. Erica McNaldy of the Ceratizit WNT team. Looks like she was the rider who went across the QOM line first, followed by Josh Loudon and Tanya Ereth up there again. So they've put points onto their team's scoreboard already.
And this is a picture of Chantal Black, of course, Bowles Dolman Cycling 2017 World Road Race Champion, looking very, very good, putting out a lot of power there. This is a very, very fast section. Remember, they're going to be coming through to see the finish line for the first time. This is the end of lap number 1. And I think if this does come down to a group sprint, it's the type of course that lends itself to a group sprint, although there are opportunities for riders to attack. They only get started at the finish line, well, with about 250 metres to go. So timing and knowing this finish is going to be absolutely crucial, because as we said before, there haven't been that many opportunities for riders to actually race on this circuit, because they're going to be carrying a lot of speed on the descent, which they can then carry through, but only get sight of the finish line with a few hundred metres to go.
Yeah, and I think, it's easy to get very excited. You want to go for that race win. And so it's easy to get excited and go too early, but it's all about patience. And, riders will have, 4 opportunities to see this finish line and know exactly where they should start their sprint, and also know their own capabilities as well. Have they got a real short, sharp, punchy sprint that they can go late and leave it long, or, do they have to kind of wind it up quite early and, sort of take everyone by surprise?
Indeed. Well, there we go. Jess Pratt moving to the front. Again, she was the most recent winner of the Zwift Academy. Actually gained herself a professional contract with the Canyon SRAM team. Canyon SRAM team, always, regulars to racing on Zwift. And look at the size of this group now. It really has whittled itself down. Oh, we were talking about this before the start, weren't we? That there's many riders are going to be very, very new to this. The whole experience of riding on Zwift is going to be new. It's going to be quite an experience. But I think some of the more community-based teams, and the teams that have raced a lot on Zwift, they're going to, I think, use the opportunity to try and shake things up very, very early on. And I think that's why we saw such a fast opening lap, is to whittle this field down. It doesn't mean the riders who have been dropped aren't good riders. It's just such a different sort of effort that riders will normally do out on the road. It's more akin to a criterium effort, or even a cyclocross type of effort physiologically.
Yeah, it is, and it means that you have to be very warmed up before you get into the race. You might want to do a 45-minute, minimum 30-minute warm-up, I would say, for a race like this. Just make sure that your muscles are warmed up. You opened up those lungs. You've done a few efforts as well, because they are very, very fast starts. What I have noticed though is the starts aren't as fast and furious as some of the community races. So, the likes of these professional women. It is a little bit easier towards the start, but then as soon as they start climbing and getting into the race, into the sprints, it is full gas, and it certainly has whittled down when you look at that bunch now. Yep,
10.7 Ks under the wheels now, and we've got an attack, a big launch just off the front. We saw Tanya Ereth before. It's Elisa Longo Borghini who's going. Remember, there's another sprint coming up. I think she must be going for that. The leading team at the moment in the race for the green jersey competition is Team Tibco Silicon Valley, headed up by Leah Dixon. But Longo Borghini gone very, very long here. Still a long way to go. And just opened up a nice 2-second lead. But running at 6.7 watts a kilo, this has to be, not too sure if this is an attack to try and split things up, or maybe just a launch to go for maximum points in the green jersey.
Yeah, this is a great tactic from Elisa Longo Borghini, the rider from Italy. She's very, very strong. She's one of the world's best women's cyclists. She's incredible. Very interesting Palmeiras, winner of the Strada Bianchi a few years ago. But just look at those watts she's putting down, and the bottom left of your screen, you can see her in real life there.
That's a great shot, isn't it?
It certainly is. Just look at the effort there. 300 watts, over 300 watts.
She's absolutely powering it. She's opening up a nice little bit of a gap here. She's looking very, very focused. You can see she's looking down, focusing on the screen. She'll either have an iPad there or a laptop which she's looking at. All of her data will be there, laid bare for her to see. Again, the type of effort, well, she's definitely going to clean up in the points classification here. She's going to bag herself another 10 points towards the green jersey, because just as they pass over the bridge, they'll go under that banner. So a good move here. Now the big question for me now, Hannah, is will she continue with that effort, or will she back it off and look to go later on? But a good win there. She clears up the points. Elisa Longo Borghini, yeah, she's backed off just a little bit, and she's been caught by the bunch. But what she needs to do now is make sure she doesn't get spat right out the back. She needs to make sure she gets on the pedals, gets in these slipstreams, because it's so hard, isn't it, to get back in contact on Zwift once you've lost the draft, once you've lost the wheel in front.
Yeah, it certainly is. And you just saw that surge of pace there from Tanya Erath and Chantal Vanderbroek Black. They've actually kind of split the peloton off the front there going through that sprint. There's around 6 riders who've got a small gap to the remaining peloton. Elisa Longo Borghini just trying to get back into those wheels, try and rest and recover as much as possible before we start going up to the next QOM.
Again, I think that big effort there has whittled it down. You can just see a couple of riders just off the back there. It's so much. Again, just to explain a little bit about the drafting on Zwift, you do get a benefit of sitting in the wheels. It's not quite the same as it is in real life. There's definitely more of a benefit for sitting in the middle of a bunch than on Zwift, but there still is quite a big benefit, about a 20 to 30% saving of sitting in the wheel. But once you do lose contact, it does take a bigger effort to get back onto the wheel. So that's why it's important, especially on a course like this, which ebbs and flows, which dips, which climbs. So many different changes of pace. If you lose concentration and lose the wheel, it can actually be game over. And already several riders have been distanced from what is now a very, very elite group out in front. Joss Loudon is there, Chloe Dygart, one of our pre-race favourites. I think she's your favourite for today. Of course, the world time trial champion, a multiple world champion on the track as well. She really is a phenomenon. As we have an interview here with Giorgia Bronzini. A little chat there from Giorgia Bronzini, the director sportif, new director sportif at Trek Segafredo. Hung up her wheels last year and is now heading up their tactics for this virtual Tour de France. And it really is good to see some of the best names in cycling across the board in this field here. I cannot wait to see how things progress. And I love the detail here as well, Hannah. I love the fact we've got the little finish lines. We've got all of the sponsors that, of course, sponsor the Tour de France in real life dropped into this virtual world on Zwift. It's absolutely wonderful to see.
It is, isn't it? And even at that start, as you go through the start-finish line, it's all been changed to look like Nice as well. So
that's right.
The normal Watopia virtual world has had a little makeover. So yeah, it's so exciting to see how it's been made to change to look like in real life Tour de France. Just the little subtle details as well. I think it's fantastic, mixed with the normal gameplay of Zwift.
It really is a fusion of in real life and the virtual world. Watopia coming together to host the Tour de France for the very first time. You are watching history here. I mean, to get the Tour de France onto this Zwift platform is something quite wonderful. And of course, ordinarily, we'd be halfway around France now. We'd be somewhere in the Dordogne. We'd maybe be in the Alps or the Pyrenees. But instead, we're here on Zwift, honouring the Tour de France. Such a special occasion here, and great to see the teams coming out in force. And this is the lower slopes of this climb. This is a difficult climb, isn't it? It's a hard climb to get into a rhythm. It's only just over 2 kilometers long, averages just under 2% gradient, but this is first part, isn't it, Hannah? That's very, very hard and rears up to maximum of 10%.
Yeah, you really underestimate it because you don't expect it to sort of kick up as much as it does. It's on this hairpin specifically, which is the hardest part. And if you're not not aware of it, as we hear from Giorgia Bronzini again.
I have a really big and strong team, so I hope to be up leading the races and why not the winning. And I believe in my girls, and everyone is keen to go for it.
Well, wise words there from Giorgia Bronzini as we see the field just thinning out a little bit. They've gone over the steepest section of this climb, and it's now essentially a flat section, hardly any percentage gradient at all, a bit of a plateau, and then it just drags up about 3 or 4% towards the finish. So about halfway up the climb, the steepest part is done, but already there's some real damage that has been caused. The field is whittled down again. I can see a couple of riders from drops up on near the front. Definitely some riders from Team Kipco Silicon Valley there as well. A couple of riders from CCC Live in that very fluorescent orange kit. But now we only have about 15, 20 riders maximum in this front group.
Yeah, it really has done some damage the second time up this Queen of the Mountain. And as you said before, you really underestimate it. It drags. It's just that, when you're already on the limit, you're already going into the red, just, going up an average gradient of, 2, 3, 4%, it really does take it out of your legs and really zaps you.
Well, we've got Hannah Ludwig in there, Magnaldi. We've got Faulkner, Jess Loudon, Leah Dixon, ever present at or near the front there, making sure she's not getting into the wind too much. Making sure it just shows her kind of level of expertise. You can see the riders who regularly ride on Zwift before, because it is quite nuanced. I think the more that you ride on Zwift, the more you experience the drag, the benefits of drag, the more you actually try out your power-ups, the better you will become. And unsurprisingly, several riders there from Canyon Schramm in the mix as well. Their full lineup: Tanya Erath, Jessica Pratt, Hannah Ludwig and Alexis Ryan. As we look at the stats of Erica Magnaldi, out of the saddle there, vest on, a beautiful day wherever she is. I think she's actually in Italy.
She's actually in Livigno at an altitude training camp, Erica Magnaldi, with her teammate Lara Vicelli. So, yeah, obviously not feeling the effects of any altitude up there on her training camp. A little bit of a smile from Erica Magnaldi. She's actually a qualified doctor. Combines that with a professional cycling career.
Very, very impressive indeed. And she's making it look pretty easy at the moment over the top of this climb. This is where the road just drags. And they only catch sight of the finishing gantry, the Queen of the Mountains finishing gantry, again with about 300 metres to go. And if you haven't ridden this course in the opposite direction many, many times, you can actually get caught out. You just saw the barrier there. They're just rounding it. There go, 500 metres to go. So they'll be coming up. The gap falls short, and there Julian de Hoor is still there as well, just at the back. A very, very fast finish indeed. And they should be just opening things up now for this sprint. We should see a couple of power-ups being dropped. Ideally, given the gradient here, you'd want maybe the feather-up power-up, but I think the aero power-up is the one you're going to want. And there we go. It's a featherweight power-up from Magnaldi. 7 watts a kilo, opening up a big gap already. But has she gone too early? More Queen of the Mountains points on offer. Magnaldi holding off. Loudon in second place. Duval in third. Chantal Black not too far away. But it looks as if she's going to get pipped on the line. Oh, it's Loudon. Just Loudon takes the points at the top of the climb there. Wonderfully timed sprint there at the top of that hill for Loudon from Great Britain. What a fantastic finish that was.
Yeah, that was brilliant, and that was perfect. That just shows, as well, the experience on Zwift. And, it's timing and your patience is everything. Not to get too excited when you see, one of the intermediate sprints or the Queen of the Mountains banner, not to go too early. Obviously, it's very, very different to in the real world where, you can feel that someone is, nipping at your heels. Whereas here you have to really just be watching on the screen, looking where all your competitors are. As we start to go down the downhill now. This is probably one of the only parts of the course where you can get a little bit of respite and recovery.
Indeed. Well, that's the kilometre to go flag under the Flamme Rouge. All these little points. There is the sprint again. She timed it absolutely to perfection. Almost came out of Magnaldi's slipstream to take the points by length. And that's all you need. Look at that. Just a late little virtual lunge on the line. And she takes maximum points. So drops are the team. It's the WNT team who are leading that classification at the moment. And remember, although individual riders score, it's the accumulated points of the team across all of the classifications. So the most points accumulated by each team in all the classifications will determine what team actually wears that jersey. And there are predetermined riders for each of the classifications that will wear that jersey on at the following stage. And it's worth mentioning now as we head through, we're coming up to lap 2 completed, so we're just coming up to the halfway point. As we look at Joss Loudon, right on cue there, 32 years of age now. She's had a pretty good start to the year. Before the season, of course, was curtailed by the COVID-19 virus. She was 12th overall in the Settimana Ciclista Valenciana. So good form before things were curtailed, and she's looking very, very good here. But the pace has just backed off a little bit now. A little bit of an opportunity maybe to rest and recuperate. But just to pick up on your point, Hannah, that descent is probably one of the only points on the circuit where you can actually get a rest. But can you explain to people the benefit of the super tuck? Because the super tuck is another very important element of Zwift, because on a course like this, there's not a lot of opportunities for rest, but the super tuck does give you that opportunity, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, and it's really important to know. And you know, it's one of those things that if you do have the knowledge of this over your competitors, you really do have an advantage. So when the gradient is at -5%, you can actually stop pedaling, and you'll go into this super tuck position, as you would see in real life as well, but for the downhill. So it means you can save energy, you can recover, grab a gel, get a drink, just get your breath back, and especially after that big effort over the top of the Queen of the Mountain, it really does make a difference. And also, if you're in the wheel of another rider, you will go into the super tuck. So very important for riders to know. There's a lot of little gamification tips within Zwift to learn. So that does come with experience, but there's several ways that you can make your race a little bit easier, let's say.
Indeed, and as well as it being that particular gradient, you have to be riding, or your bike has to be going at 57 kilometers an hour or above for you to get that tuck. And I must admit, I've been riding on Zwift for nearly 4 years and didn't realise I could do a super tuck. But it's very beneficial. So you stop pedaling, but your bike will continue, and your avatar in-game will get itself tucked into that position to give you that little bit of respite, which is so important in a race like this. Because let's be honest, there's a really unique style to racing on Zwift, especially it's a lot shorter, and riders, it's almost akin to a kind of not quite a sub-maximal test, but like a time trial effort. You're always at or near your threshold, aren't you?
Yeah, you are, and it's a very hard effort, to be able to sustain. I think this is why riders like Joss Loudon are very, very good on Zwift, likes of Leah Dixon as well. They are very good time trialists. So this style of racing really does suit them. As we see Elisa Longo Borghini of Trek Segafredo want to go off the front again. She's doing the same tactic as she did before, going to not far from the next sprint point into the S's now. So wants to try and stay away and repeat what she did on the previous lap. Joss Loudon just on the front of the bunch there.
Well, she's
with
opened up a
Alexis
gap
Ryan as well.
Indeed, this is a very, very good move. Longo Borghini obviously feeling very, very good indeed. She opened up a couple of seconds gap to take those points. And as you said, we're on that part of the course known as the S's. You can just see the volcano billowing away in the distance, spewing lava perpetually. We'll be racing through the volcano in this sets of races. But again, it's another one of the characteristics of Zwift. It is absolutely fantastic, the detail that goes into rendering these fantastical worlds. And even better to see some of the finest riders in the world in the virtual Tour de France racing here. But Longo Borghini looking very, very good indeed. And she's going to come towards this sprint, I think, and take some more points towards that classification. She's looking very, very good indeed, isn't she?
Yeah, she's looking very comfortable. She'll have her sports director, Giorgia Bronzini, in her ear. Bronzini, of course, a former road world champion herself from Italy. So she's got 7 seconds on Tanya Erath and the remaining peloton behind her. So it looks like she will be able to take this next sprint point. Lisa Longo Borghini looking very, very smooth indeed.
She is looking very, very smooth, just rolls through. She's getting loads. A lot of you who may be watching this virtual Tour de France for the very, very first time, well, we're all watching it for the very first time because history is being made. This is the first time we've had the Tour de France on Zwift in this virtual world. And you might be wondering, what on earth are those little thumbs ups? Well, they are basically called ride-ons. That's part of the community kind of thing about Zwift. If you're on Zwift, if you can use the companion app, which basically means very much like you would give a like on Instagram or Facebook, you can give somebody what's called a ride-on in-game, and all those little ride-ons fill up in the rider's pockets. So if you look at the luminous kind of glow from these riders' back pockets, they are all the ride-ons that they've got from the people in the Zwift community, which is absolutely fantastic. And unsurprisingly, I think we've got a very, very big audience here. So I think the ride-ons are almost going to be weighing these riders down as we look at the battle for second place in the sprint. I think it was Tanya Erath, very, very active again, who took points going through there. But another marker on this course has now gone, and we're getting towards the back end of this race now. But Longo Borghini, cheered on by a rather avid supporter on the right and left hand side, rolling across the line with a nice comfortable gap and looking very, very good, and clearly really getting to grips with the with riding on Zwift.
Yeah, it's fantastic to see all these riders. You know, Elisa Longo Borghini, bronze medalist at the Olympic Games in Rio de Janeiro. She's back in the peloton now after that effort, but that doesn't matter. She's picked up maximum points in that next sprint. As you can just see, a few more power-ups being dropped there. That's the draft, the van. So that'll make you a little bit easier to stay in the peloton. 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's
this
the
bunch
longest,
is certainly whittled down lap by lap, hasn't it, Matt?
No, it certainly has. There's about 15 to 20 riders in this group. Duval is there. You can just see the top 10 riders down the right-hand side, and the little figure just below that is the watts per kilogram. That's a measure of power that they are putting out. So we only have 14.3 Ks to go, which equates roughly to 1.5 laps. This is the opening stage of the virtual Tour de France. The women have opened up this for us. It's been a good race so far, very, very aggressive. But as the kilometres have ticked by, this course is starting to take its toll, and I think it's the just the very aggressive nature of the racing. Riders happy to go off the front, and you do wonder if certain teams have come into the stage targeting particular classifications, whether they're going to try and not race too aggressively, try and keep as many riders as they can in the mix to go for the sprint at the end, or you've got particular teams targeting the polka dots or the green jersey. What are your thoughts on that, Hannah?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think as we can start to see a bit of a pattern emerging with Elisa Longo Borghini going for the sprints along with Tanya Erath. You can see Erica McNaldy going for the QOM. But one rider we haven't seen much of is Chloe Dygart. I know there's 50 points on offer on the finish line for the Maillot Jaune, as well as 10 points towards the green jersey as well. So that's 60 points if you go across the line first at the end of the race. That is a whole lot of points towards your team's classification. So, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, teams have said, okay, we're going to sacrifice you for the QOM, you for the sprints, and, you know, I want you two riders to try and pick up as many points as you can in the finale.
Indeed. Well, on the right-hand side there, we just saw the rolling classification for the Maillot Vert, or the green jersey, the Classement Papouas, as the French would say. And it's Canyon Schramm leading that, 52 points ahead of Team Tibco with 33. So Canyon Schramm looking very, very good at the moment in relation to the green jersey classification. And look at all these featherweight power-ups being dropped on this climb. The riders know when to use this. And when you look at the profile of this course, the first part of this climb is very, very steep indeed. And that's, if you want to get a little bit of a rest, you do have a featherweight power up. That's when you want to use it, because it makes you, for 15 seconds, 9.5 kilograms lighter. So massively increases your power to weight ratio. As we see Faulkner moving off the front, the American here, just drifting off. This is one of the riders from Bowles Dolmans, has just shut the gap down very, very quickly indeed. So two riders now going clear. They've gone past the steepest part of this climb. And WNT Rota just going straight over the top here. Big, big attack. McNaldy again. She does love these uphill sections, climbing superbly. Yeah,
she's climbing fantastically, isn't she? Whenever the road goes up, either virtually or in real life, you know, she's there. You just look at the weight, watts per kilo there. Erica McNaldy, 5.33 watts per kilo. Very high. She's very light rider. She's very small as well, only around 5'3". So, you know, the average is obviously much higher than some of those other riders who might be taller and also a bit more of a stocky rider, more sprinter style, puncher. McNaldy back into the peloton though.
Yep, so a couple of riders just using this flatter section to get back in contact. One or two riders are really taking a bit of a kicking on that climb, as we say. Get back in contact though. A couple of riders from Rally at the back there, riders from Sunweb. Haven't seen too many of those riders near the front. Five for Georgie, Franziska Koch, Suzanne Anderson and Pernille Matheson. They're the four riders from Team Sunweb in that rather fetching white and black kit. Another one of the kits, the teams have slightly changed their kit this season. There's one rider definitely there from FDJ Nouvelle Aquitaine Futuroscope. I would imagine that might be Amelia Farlin. She's a very, very good climber indeed. We're focusing on Magnaldi at the moment, but I think now riders are thinking, what can we do towards the back end of this race? Just trying to hang on in the wheels and maybe communicating with each other, checking what the strategy is. Look at Magnaldi there, making it look very, very easy indeed.
Yeah, she certainly is. She's looking very focused and composed, not getting too worried. Also kind of just at the start of that climb, just playing with the other competitors, maybe putting them under a little bit of stress. With her little attack, it meant that the other riders had to make an effort to get back towards her. Sorry. She's making it look very easy indeed. You just see her stats at the bottom left of your screen. 38 kilometers per hour uphill here, so very, very impressive stats. Got a great little cadence as well at 82 revs per minute.
Yeah, she's looking very, very good indeed. You can just see that's what we've done. You can just see that little marker, that little orange triangle on the right-hand side. That is where we are on the course. We only have 11.5 kilometres to go. And I think it's worth mentioning here, Hannah, I mean, Zwift is a platform for the community. There's racing on it. You can just ride on it. You can do events on it. You can train. But importantly, hand in hand with the Tour de France comes the L'Étape Tour as well. So there's opportunities here. Let's just take these rides across the line. There's action all the time here. Magnaldi going for the sprint. It is Loudon coming through. Tacey just behind. Hannah Ludwig not far off. It looks as if it's going to be Loudon again. Takes maximum points on the Queen of the Mountains, despite some power-ups being used by some of the other riders. Just shows how good she's going. Maximum points again for Joss Loudon. She is absolutely flying.
Yeah, she's on fire, isn't she? And as again, timed it to perfection. Magnaldi went a little bit too early again, and Loudon, hot on her heels, managed to just come round her. Also, Tacey up there, so she's adding points to Drop's overall team classification tally. Magnaldi just needs to get back into those wheels, try and recover as we see a ghost power-up being used on this downhill section, Matt.
Indeed, a couple of ghost power-ups, some super tucks going on as well. But again, we're just talking about L'Étape Tour. We have a different stage each week. So L'Étape Tour basically means that you can ride on the courses that these riders have been racing on. You can jump on Zwift today. If you head to zwift.com/events, find a time slot that's suitable for you, and then you can ride the L'Étape. And as the stages progress over the next couple of weeks, you can then ride on the brand new worlds that we'll be seeing in about a week's time. We've got a brand new France map for you, which is very, very exciting indeed, I must confess. But please get involved, and if you do ride just one event, or just one of the L'Étape Tours, the virtual L'Étape Tours, you get to keep that virtual jersey as well, as Joss Loudon was detached briefly, but soon shoots back into the middle of that group. But I certainly will be jumping on one of the L'Étapes. Will you?
Yeah, I certainly will. I want to get the jersey first and foremost. But yeah, I'm going to do one of those stages, probably do tomorrow actually, and jump on, see how it goes. I've already seen when I had a look on the Zwift companion app earlier on, at just after the racing finishes today of the men's and women's races, there's over 5,000 people signed up for one of the stages, so it's absolutely fantastic already to see how many people are getting involved. It really is. It's tremendous.
It is, and I do encourage you to get involved in one of these events, or try and do the whole lot if you can. Get involved in the spirit of the Tour. Yet the Tour isn't with us right at the moment, but the Tour de France organisation and Zwift have got together to give you this wonderful series of races over the next couple of weekends. So we're spread over 2 weekends. We've got stage 2 coming tomorrow, which is the Watopia mountain route. Next week, we have the RGB stage and the Caspat stage. And then the final weekend, we have Lorraine, where we go up Mont Ventoux, a virtual Mont Ventoux, which you can again do in the L'Étape Tour as well. And then we have a final, well, the jewel in the crown, really. We have the stage 6 is up the Champs-Élysées, as rendered in Zwift. Very, very exciting indeed, as is this race. We're into the final lap now. 1 lap to go. Riders now thinking about what power-ups they can get, or whether they can get a different power-up and drop one of the ones now. The speed has just dropped a little bit here. I think for the first time here, Hannah, we're seeing people just checking who's in the group first and foremost. And what we haven't really touched upon, because so much has been going on, is the fact that these teams will be communicating with each other, won't they? Via Discord, via WhatsApp. They'll also have a team manager in their ear, communicating how they're feeling and what the plan is.
Yeah, they will. And, now's the all-important time as we hear from Nicola Cranmer of Team 2020.
It's going to be such an amazing event for women's cycling. We get to be showcased on the biggest cycling platform in the world. That is the Tour de France. And the stages are very mixed. We've got mountains and flats, so we'll be looking at a different rider for each stage. For stage one, I would say my pick would be Chloe Dygert.
Well, there you go. Nicola Cranmer has been a real supporter of the Zwift platform. The Team 2020 show air in their various iterations, which she runs and owns, have put a lot into racing on Zwift and, of course, racing in the real world. And part of her team, of course, is the protege that is Chloe Dygert, who is still in this front group, as is Tanya Erath there. Eugene Duval is there. Amy Peters as well from Bowles Dolman. Some real class. Joss Loudon, who's been very, very active. Leah Dixon is still there as well. We've also got, Dixon we mentioned. Here again is Tanya Erath from Germany. Again, a former winner of the Zwift Academy. This is her third year running for Canyon SRAM, and she really does love racing on Zwift. She's getting better and better, and has helped put her team, Canyon SRAM, into the lead in the points classification. And there's definitely a couple of other riders from Canyon SRAM in the mix as well. Soraya Paladin is there as well. Jess Pratt as well, the last winner of the Zwift Academy, also in the mix as well. So unsurprisingly, Hannah, Canyon SRAM looking good at the moment.
Yeah, they're looking very, very good with, Jess Pratt there, Tanya Erath looking very comfortable. Starts to rock and roll a little bit. 7.4 kilometers to go. So we'll go into the S's, and then we'll have the next and the final sprint coming up very soon as Erath starts to move around the bunch there, using the wheels to move herself up through the peloton. Crystal Dobell Hickok up there as well. She was a rider who was very, very impressive in the Tour for All just a couple of months ago. She was third on stage 2, so another rider to watch.
Amy Peters now moving to the front. The three riders for Canyon SRAM, Tanya Erath, Jess Pratt and Hannah Ludwig, so they have three riders in the mix as Duval now moves to the front. It won't be long before we hit the final sprint of the day. There are points for the green jersey classification when they cross the line as well, but the final intermediate sprint will be coming up very, very shortly. And I'm wondering here if riders are going to back off a little bit. Nobody's attacked like we saw before. Here's the first move on the left-hand side. Moving clear, I think it's Chantal Black who's going for this one. Chantal Black, Madvaldi just behind, Jess Pratt in third. So a big move here by Chantal Black. Just lapped a rider there, but Black takes that one. 55 k's an hour for Chantal Black. Remember, the former world champion won that title in Norway. I had the privilege of actually commentating on that one. What a win that was. But Chantal Black seems to be, is she continuing with the effort? Because she certainly opened up a little bit of a gap. Big acceleration there by the rider from Bowles Dolman Cycling. And straight over the top goes Jess Pratt from New Zealand.
Well, just look at that. The effort from Chantal Black caused a split at the front of that peloton. Pratt was able to go with it. Kristen Faulkner, Elisa Longo Borghini, rider Erico Manaldi, always up towards the fore of this race for Ceratizit WNT Pro Cycling. Loudon again comes to the front for drops as well. So all the names that we've been regularly seeing throughout the whole race are still here. There's only around 20 riders left in this bunch now, so it really is anyone's race. Soraya Paladin of CCC Live as well.
Yep, there's some really, really classy rods up in the mix. And there we go. We've got, there is the current classification for the green jersey. Canyon SRAM, 71 points. Tibco with 42, and then Bowles Dolman's with 34 points, and Treg in fourth. So we only have 5.6 kilometres to go now, 31 kilometres under the wheels, and this is going to be set fair for a rip-roaring finale.
Well, you can just see Nilo there on the front. He rides CC Live. Soraya Paladin comes to the front for CCC Live. Elisa Longo Borghini again. Leah Dixon, a rider we haven't seen much of in this race so far for the Tibco Cycling Bank.
So there we go, 5.1 kilometres to go now. Magnaldi in the centre of this group, looking good. She's been very, very aggressive so far. Maybe she was just focusing on the Queen of the Mountains classification, but just a little bit of a reminder as we just go under the 5Ks to go ball. But this is a team event, all about amassing as many teams as, as many points as you can. 50 points on offer for the first rider across the line. The top 25 riders across the line will score points. 25th place is worth 1 point. So the more riders you have near the front, the more chance they are of scoring points. And of course, there is a predetermined rider that will move into the coveted Maillot Jaune at the end of today's stage. But, and it is a big but, tomorrow's stage is a different one with a different permutation of riders. So we may actually see a different rider from the team wearing the yellow jersey. And that is something very different than, of course, riding in real life in the Tour de France. So there are some little tweaks. It is the real focus on the team classification here, working as a unit. But with only 4Ks to go, we're just heading in for the final ascent of this climb. Are we going to see some attacks here, Hannah? I'm expecting some fireworks.
Yeah, I am. This final time up this Queen of the Mountain. As again, McNally up towards the front. Amelia Farlin is up there, the former Swedish road race champion for FDJ Nouvelle Aquitaine. So she's another rider to watch out for. Eugenie Duval as well. Well, Kristen Faulkner, she's another rider who's always up towards the front for Tipco Silicon Bank Valley.
Well, Longo Borghini has just gone on the attack, dropping a burrito. The burrito that makes you undraftable for 10 seconds. So it just shows she really does understand when to use the right sort of power-ups. You cannot choose your power-ups. They are given randomly at 3 points on the course, but it's how you use that particular power-up is crucial. But as you attack, that is the ideal point to use, because nobody can get your wheel. Nobody gets the benefit of draft for 10 seconds. As we look at Rally Cycling's Krista Adobel-Hickok, really driving hard, just under 300 watts here, 105 RPM on her balcony, studying the data, studying the riders around her. She's really trying hard to hold on to these wheels as the gaps are starting to come now, Hannah.
Yeah, we just look at those gaps opening, her heart rate 187 beats per minute. She really is on the limit on this start of the Queen of the Mountain. So finding herself in a little bit of a bad position. If she can just move up a few places, and we start to see a few riders losing touch there with the front. It's the pace of the two Italians, Erica Rinaldi and Elisa Longo Borghini, putting a lot of riders in difficulty. And just look at the line of riders in this peloton now. It really is stretched out, Matt.
It certainly is. Very, very exciting finale. Riders really struggling to hold the wheel. That little cluster of riders at the front, I'd say about 10 riders there. Faulkner leads, McNally, Chloe Dygart for the first time. She's been very, very quiet, but she knows she rides so much on this platform, and it will be so important to take the win. The individual win, of course, very, very important, but she's ably backed up by Shayna Paulus, Natalia Franco and Jasmine During. The team in the green and blue. Are we going to see a big attack? Dygart now moves to the front, opening things up. This is where the climb just flattens a little bit before just picking up towards the top. It's actually a very gradual climb at the last part, and I think there is definitely a big benefit of just sitting in the wheels here. But another little bit of an entente cordiale now. Faulkner drops a featherweight power up coming towards the top of this climb. 2.8 kilometers to go now, Hannah.
Yeah, not long until we reach the banner for the Queen of the Mountain. Then it's going to be a fast and furious descent into the finish. Are we going to see a replica of what we've been seeing the last few laps? McNally, Loudon up there. Number of riders, Krista Dobell-Hickok, Chloe Dygart as well. Amy Peters coming to the fore for Bowles Dolmans as well. You can just see a ghost power-up being used there by Krista by the looks of things, or Chantal Black, sorry.
Well, a ghost power-up's been used by Chantal Black, the former world road champion, goes invisible for 10 seconds, and it's gone clear. Again, absolutely wonderful tactic there, the use of the invisibility power-up, but another rider, is equal to McNally again. She's been on superb form today, especially on the climbs, but we see an emergence, a late emergence. I think it's another power up by Joss Loudon has been used. Look at that. She drops a featherweight power up. She's dominated the Queen of the Mountains classification, flies past McNally and Chantal Black. It looks again as if it's going to be maximum points for Loudon, but McNally's closing in. 11 watts a kilo. McNally goes straight past. What a sprint there by McNally. It looked as if it was all over, but she pushed out 11 watts a kilo to take maximum points over the final climb. And we're now, Hannah, into the last 1,800 metres. But what is the toll on the legs? The lungs are going to be burning. Can they now hold on to take the win?
Well, just look at this 2-second gap now to the peloton. Loudon and McNally have a gap to the world time trial champion Chloe Dygert. Dygert into that super tuck position. McNally and Loudon just need to rest and recover, but don't lose those wheels. And start to see a little bit of a regrouping now. This is a very fast 70 kilometers an hour down this descent now. 1.2 kilometers to go, Matt. 35.8 kilometers raced.
Well, Chantal Black goes to the front again. We're coming under the Flamme Rouge. There it is, 1 kilometre to go in this, the opening stage of the first ever virtual Tour de France. History is about to be made because very soon we're going to see the first rider in the yellow jersey. But we have the all-important sprint to come. It does look like it's going to come for a sprint. Chantal Black is there. Leah Dixon, one of the pre-race favourites. Hannah Ludwig, Chloe Dygert is there. She's just moving to the front. They only see the finishing line in the last 350 metres or so. It's very, very late. But they're playing cat and mouse as we head into the final 500 metres now. Stage 1 of the virtual Tour de France. We have McNally, Faulkner, Tacey, Ludwig, Dygert, Chantal Black, Joss Loudon, Leah Dixon, also Jess Pratt, of course, there for Canyon SRAM. It's all coming together. We're into the last 300 metres now. The sprint has been opened up. Dygert goes. Dygert, 10.5 watts a kilo for the world time trial champion. She's opening things up. She's still holding the lead. Another power-up has been used. It looks like Tacey now goes to the front. Tacey takes the win. A superb win. Drops the power-up just at the right time. But it is April Tacey from the Drop Cycling team who takes an absolutely superb win here on stage 1 of the virtual Tour de France.
Well, that was absolutely sensational, wasn't it? Just look at the effort of April Tacey on the left-hand side. Look at the effort that's taken out of her. Very, very impressive by the British rider there.
Well, what an amazing win. We hadn't seen her all day, but she timed that to perfection. Only 19 years of age. She's been up there before in the top 10 of the individual time trial and the national championships, but that was a performance. Well, that is the performance of her young career so far. She takes the win. What some of the scalps she has taken there, absolutely superb. And there we go, the appreciative crowd jumping for joy. Well, as well they might. That was an absolute sensational sprint. Chantal Black was in the mix there, Chloe Dygert, but the timing was to perfection, wasn't it? She dropped the power up at the right time, had the right momentum, clearly had the power to take a well-deserved win.
Yeah, she certainly did, and that really was a fantastic team effort. Loudon up towards the front there in the Queen of the Mountain. Tacey managed to get back on terms when there was a 6-rider gap on the descent, and Tacey using the power-ups to perfection. She just timed that sprint and really, battled it out there with Dygert, the world time trial champion. I mean, that really is a magnificent feat there for the young 19-year-old.
Again, and we know that Zwift is a platform where we can discover new talent, and that really is a coming of age, really. Let's have a look at that again. Well, there's the final sprint across the line there. Look at all the power-ups, the flurry of power-ups that are being used. Unsurprisingly, the one that you want is the aero power-up, which, as we alluded to before, that increases your drag efficient, your drag coefficient by 25%, so massively improves the way that you penetrate through the air. But what a win there for April Tacey, and a big win for Drops. But very shortly, we shall see, well, there is the classification, the individual classification. It is April Tacey who takes the win for Drops in a time of 51 minutes and 7 seconds. Faulkner in second for Team Tibco, and then Chantal Black there for Bowles Dolmans in third place. Another Brit, or from Wales in fact, it's Leah Dixon in fourth. Chloe Dygert there in fifth position. Tanya Erath, the first rider from Canyon SRAM, home in sixth. Hannah Ludwig, her teammate, in seventh. Joss Loudon, very aggressive earlier on. Jess Pratt, another good ride by Canyon SRAM. That's 3 riders in the top 10. And then rounding out the top 10 at 2 seconds is Dobell Hidcock. Whew, I'm absolutely exhausted. What a wonderful opening stage that was, Hannah. I mean, a real good battle across all the classifications as well. We saw riders very aggressive, going for the Queen of the Mountains. Lots of aggressive riding and attacks going for the green jersey, and then the all-important sprint at the end. Well, that was absolutely sensational.
Yeah, it really was, and all the different teams getting involved as well. Trek Segafredo. I mean, that to have Drops as well up against some of the best teams in the world. That is a really big win for the British team. It's fantastic. I'm sure Bob Varney will be very, very happy about the way his team rode throughout the race as well. Joss Loudon, Tacey as well. They really have come together as a team here in the virtual world, and they've been doing a lot on in the virtual world recently. It's great to see the experience and is paying off for them.
It certainly is. I think it's definitely, well, without a shadow of a doubt, a big benefit the more you ride. Just riding on Zwift, not just racing, although the racing effort's so important. It's a very specific effort on Zwift, and the race that we've seen today is on the longer side. This is one of the longer races. Generally, the racing between half an hour and 45 minutes, so a slightly longer race here. Endurance, of course, playing a key part. And as you look at that wonderful shot there, the marina in Watopia turned into Nice for the first ever edition of the virtual Tour de France. We will get confirmation of the team that is leading, all-important leading team. And there again is a picture of our winner, 19-year-old April Tacey of Drop Cycling with a headband on. Hey, look at that. She cannot believe it. That, without a shadow of a doubt, in real life or on the road, that's the biggest ride of her career.
It certainly is. I think she's in shock, isn't she? I mean, fantastic effort. And she left it all out on the road, the virtual road, and I think she'll be delighted with that once she realises what she's achieved. Start to see a glimmer of a smile there from Tacey. Very delighted with the very first virtual Tour de France stage win.
Well, there we go. She has made history. She really, really has. And there we have the oh, there we go. Oh, she's back again. Well, there we go. Stage one of the Tour de France done. The virtual Tour de France done and dusted for the women. Next up is the men. But as soon as we can, we'll get you details of the leading team. And then, of course, the rider that will wear the yellow jersey going into the next stage. I'm not very good at mathematics, so what I'm not going to do is even kind of try and make a punt here. One of the teams that clearly did score very well out on the course in the Queen of the Mountains and out on the course for the points classification, the green jersey, and of course had 3 riders in the top 10 at the end were Canyon SRAM. So I think a good candidate potentially for the team that has managed to get a rider in the jersey could be Canyon SRAM, but because they were very, very visible all day and are one of the most experienced teams riding on Zwift, without taking anything away, of course, from our individual winner, Hannah.
No, not at all. But it'll be interesting, as you say, when we get the results of the classifications, the different jerseys. I think it was very tight in some of them, especially the likes of the polka dot jersey. So it will be interesting to see. We should have those results very shortly. But I do love, Matt, the chalk on the roads here. Ride on and hammer time, not cramp time.
Was that you? Because I know that you were up very, very early this morning doing a bit of a recon. Did you just stop your avatar and actually spray or chalk the road? Because it looks like your handwriting.
Yeah, I did actually. I just wanted to encourage the riders and give them a bit of motivation on the road, as you would do in real life at the Tour de France, Matt. So, that was me. I put my hand up and own up on that.
Good stuff. Well, tomorrow we move, of course, on to stage 2 while we just wait for the results. We've got the men coming up next. Their race starts in about 5 or 6 minutes' time. We'll be showing you complete coverage of that race as well. But tomorrow, a very, very different affair in terms of the parkour. Now, we do stay in the world of Watopia. We don't quite move onto the new world of France just yet, and it is a mountain stage. It's basically flat for a first part, then we do a large climb the second biggest climb on Zwift. Then we drop down the other side to finish back on the marina, and we're going to have a different lineup as well. Unsurprisingly, some climbers will be into the mix, and we've got a completely different change for Canyon SRAM. So if Canyon SRAM do end up winning today, the yellow jersey will go onto the shoulders of somebody else, because tomorrow's lineup for Canyon SRAM is Ella Harris, Hannah Barnes, Elena Animilusic and Oma Shapira, none of whom who have ridden today. So if they are the winning team, the actual yellow jersey wearer will be a different rider, and that's one of the nuances, of course, of this team classification. And in the women's races, the women are only allowed to ride 4 out of the 6 races, so they can have any kind of permutation of riders from their squad, but a rider cannot ride more than 4 races. And in the men's, one rider cannot ride more than 3 races. So generally that will give opportunities for the team managers to select their riders in relation to their training, and also the courses, of course, that suit them most. So another view of the Queen of the Mountains that we saw so much action on earlier on. Some really fierce battles on that particular climb. Josh Loudon dominating. So Drops have had a wonderful day. I think Josh Loudon will be the rider that scored individually the most points, but of course it is your team it's the team classification, it's the accumulated points for all of the riders that will move your team into that classification lead. And this is the final few hundred meters coming into the marina here. A couple of power-ups being used now. Leah Dixon left it very late. It was quite strung out, wasn't it here, Hannah? So a lot of because of the kind of speed that they had coming into the finish, if you were too far back, it was game over, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, and I think that's as we saw. Daigar, Chantel Black, April Tacey, they did have a slight gap with those riders who were chasing behind. So as you said, it was so fast that if you were too far back and you weren't well positioned, there was no chance that you were going to be able to get back on terms for the stage victory. And Tacey just able to get around former world road race champion Chantel Black at the finish, and one of a biggest highlight, a biggest result of her career, young career so far.
No, without a doubt. I mean, showed real maturity there. But I think one of the things that highlighted her ride for me, I want to say highlights, it's the complete opposite. She was notable by her absence, and that means that she rode a very conservative race. And when you drill down, look at the stats post race, quite often on Zwift, as in the real world as well, it's sometimes the riders that don't show themselves, that ride with the most economy, that sit back, relax, ride in the wheels. It's still a hard effort, but they just save their effort for the end. And quite often we do see on this particular course, although there's always a whittled down bunch, it often comes down to a bunch sprint, and quite often it's the rider that saved the most energy for the finishing kick at the end that delivers. Yeah,
definitely. And I think the way that Tacey and Joss Loudon rode together as a unit, it was done very, very well. So, Loudon went for all as many intermediate points as she could within the Queen of the Mountains, tried to pick up any points in the intermediate sprints as well. But then Tacey, it was all down to her for the finish, picking up 50 points towards that Maillot Jaune and the team classification. And there was also 10 points on offer on the finish line for the first rider across the line, 10 points to the green jersey as well.
Indeed, and just a reminder on how the team classification works. Normally in the real Tour de France, the in real life Tour de France, it's based on time, but here it is based on accumulated points across all of the classifications. So when you pot together the points gathered in the green jersey competition, the yellow jersey competition and the polka dot competition, those amassed accumulated points, the team with the most points across all of the classifications, that will determine the leading team. And they'll be denoted from tomorrow. I believe it's by a red number, or a yellow number denoting the leading team. And it'll be great tomorrow, though, won't it, Hannah, to see the riders in the various jerseys, won't it? That's going to be pretty special, just like in real life, to see the polka dot jersey, the Maillot Jaune, the best young rider, of course, out there on the roads of Watopia. Is going to be something very, very special, and actually very significant, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And this you said before, and we've said this, multiple times. This really is history making. We are making history here with the very first virtual Tour de France. And it's all the jerseys that we're used to seeing in the real life. Over the last 100 odd years. With the green, the polka dot, the yellow, and the white.
Well, we are going to come to the men's race very, very shortly. Well, welcome to stage one of the inaugural virtual Tour de France here on Zwift with some of the finest pros in the world. We're making history as they battle it out for the coveted Maillot Jaune. And this is the men's race. We've just had the women's, but now we have 23 teams making up 92 riders battling it out on exactly the same course. And there we go, EF Education first, Arkea Samsic, all of the big World Tour teams are here. Groupama, Israel Cycling Academy with Alex Dowsett there, John Gibbons representing Lotto. We've got Circus Wanty Gobert, Cofidis are there. Look out for Christophe Laporte. Greg Van Avermaet, the Olympic champion rider for CCC. Michael Matthews there for Team Sunweb in the red, as well as the world champion Mads Pedersen riding for Trek Segafredo. And watch out for Gorka Izagirre riding for Astana, as well as Chris Bockmans there for B&B Hotels Vital Concept. So 23 teams battling it out for the all-important Maillot Jaune. And there is the course that the riders will face today. It's known as the Watopia Hilly reverse course. Total distance of 36.4 Ks, 4 laps. And as you can see, there's a sprint every lap, which will count towards the points classification, and a King of the Mountains as well, counting towards the polka dot jersey. And just in relation to the way things work here, it's all team-based. There's no times in relation to the yellow jerseys. It's all about accumulated points. So the more riders that you have near the head of affairs at the finish of the race, the more chance you will get of moving into the leader's jersey. 50 points on offer for the first rider across the line. The top 25 riders score, and the team that accumulates the most points will wear the yellow jersey. And there's a pre-designated rider that will wear the jersey for the following stage. Now the men are already off, about a kilometre into their race. It's a cracking field. We've got some wonderful riders here. We've already mentioned a couple of them. We've got world champion Mads Pedersen here, won his title back in Yorkshire last year. And we have Greg Van Avermaet, to name but a few, Michal Kwiatkowski. It's an absolutely stacked field. And alongside me, again, to talk us through this race, and it's going to be a corker, is Hannah Walker. Hannah, this is going to be great.
Yeah, this is going to be fantastic, isn't it? And if the men have seen any of the women's race just previously and sort of had a slight look at how they raced it, you know, we really are in for a treat. I mean, it really was action-packed, wasn't it, Matt?
No, it certainly was. It was absolutely fantastic. A great race won by April Tacey, bit of a surprise winner. But here we go, the men's teams here. All of the jerseys that you'll be familiar with in real life. We've also got a couple of pro-continental teams here. Alpecin Phoenix, I think the most high profile. We have Mathieu van der Poel wearing number 71. Has to be one of the out-and-out favourites. We're looking at Emils Lipins at the moment from Latvia. Nikias Arndt is the rider on the front at the moment. And just for, if anybody of you or any one of you are looking at this or watching the virtual Tour de France, you've never seen racing on Zwift before, just to talk about what you see on your screen. On the top left, that is the elapsed time. Just next to that is the distance to the finish line, as denoted by the checkered flag. We have 35 Ks to go, and the distance elapsed 1.8 kilometres so far. And the data on the right-hand side, that's your leading 10 riders, would obviously change. That's in real time. You have the name of the rider, the time between the rider, the time gaps between the riders, should I say, and the riders' watts per kilogram, which is a measure of power. So there we go. Big field at the moment, and not quite the same explosive start, Hannah, that we're used to seeing. But again, it's slightly different. I think the pros racing on Zwift are going to race it slightly differently than the community races on Zwift, which have a far faster start. I think we might see a more of a traditional start, as we're already in. Well, the action is thick and fast. The first sprint comes after 2.7 Ks. And there's points on offer for the green jersey classification here. Schelling on the front from the Netherlands. Big drive for home here. It's gone very, very long, though. It's still got about 100 metres to go. Well, he's opened up the afterburners, and straight over the top is a Reinhard Jansi van Rensburg from NTT. Tyson goes through. Daryl Impey is there as well. It looks like Tyson's going to take this one very, very close. Ooh, I think it is Tyson who takes the win there. No, Daryl Impey. We'll get confirmation of that, but it's action all the way. And that's the first hotspot sprint done and dusted, Hannah.
Yeah, well, as we said, we were just saying how the starts are a lot slower than the community or elite races, and straight into that sprint there, action and fireworks from 300 meters out there. It was very, very close indeed with the Ida Schelling from Bora Hansgrohe going a little bit early. The 22-year-old, as we see Ben Gasteur, Luxembourgish rider, come to the fore now, Matt.
Indeed, Jonas Koch there from CCC. Riders just getting a feel for it. Many of these riders have raced on Zwift for quite a lot, and for a lot of them, it's going to be a completely new experience. One of the riders who we know clocks a lot of miles on Zwift. As we look at picture here, it's of course the former South African road champion. That is Daryl Impey. I'm not too sure, Hannah, whether that is a smile or a grimace or a bit of both, to be honest with you, because he knows he's scored well there for the points classification. But Daryl Impey, a great all-rounder, and when you look at the kind of course that he will revel in, I would say that this punchy kind of course, up and down, we know he can sprint well, will suit him down to the ground. Yeah, definitely. It really will suit him well, this type of course. Daryl Impey from South Africa. You just see, it's like, I can't tell if it's a grimace or a smile, as you said, but you can see the perspiration. He's having a little bit of a laugh there. Yeah, he should suit him very, very well. Over 400 watts there as well, so he's pushing out a very, very good amount of power. 55 kilometres, so there's not hanging around this peloton at all. No, not hanging around at all. As you say, making it look like he's riding to the shops, but hovering, feathering around 400 watts is Daryl Impey. Another rider that's just moving to the front now, Dan McClay in the red jersey, riding for Arkea Samsic. Again, another rider moved across from EF Education First to ride with the French team. A very, very fast finisher indeed. But now we are about halfway round lap number one. A few riders are in a little bit of difficulty, but a big field here, slightly bigger field. 92 riders started. Teams of 4, and as far as I understand, every single team has managed to field the full 4 riders. And we just look at Gamper now on the front, another rider from Team CCC. There's 2 teams with very, very similar kit. Of course, CCC with that primarily orange kit with their black trim, and then Rally Cycling, the American team, are here as well. So watch out for those 2 teams as we get confirmation of the opening sprint. It was indeed won by Daryl Impey. Tyson from Belgium and Lotto Soudal was second. Rensburg in third. Rasmus Tiller in fourth from NTT. So the first blood has been drawn in relation to the classifications on offer. All of the classifications that you'd see in the normal Tour de France are here as well in the virtual Tour de France. We have the white jersey for best young rider, best under 25 rider. We have the points classification for the team that accumulates the most points. There's points awarded across the finish line for the first 10, but at every single intermediate sprint there is points awarded for the first 10 as well. And then of course we have the yellow jersey classification, and a big attack here early on. It's Dan McClay who's going up the climb. Didn't expect to see Dan McClay on the offensive so early, especially on the lower slopes of this climb. But Dan McClay opening things up here, Hannah. Yeah, is this a great tactic though by McClay? He's more of a sprinter, so just trying to get maybe a bit of sliding room on this climb, Matt. Just to open up a little bit of a gap. He's got 4 seconds on his peers. So, but it is very early to go. The climb is over 2 kilometres. It does have an average of 1.8%. He's caught now by Rafa Fowles of the Bahrain McLaren team. But McClay just wanted a little bit of sliding room on this king of the mountain. Yeah, that was a big explosion there. Maybe practicing his sprints, but he's gone backwards very, very quickly. Almost had the reversing lights on, but hopefully he can get a wheel. And it is Rafa Fowles off the front here. Gianni Vermeesch is trying to come across the glass. Casper Asgreen, what an engine Casper Asgreen has running for De Koenig Quickstep. De Koenig Quickstep have a very, very good team here. Casper Asgreen, Florian Seneschal, Peter Seri and Zdenek Stybar. A real superb team. But Rafa Fowles for Bahrain McLaren has got a good team as well. He's got Ivan Garcia Cortina, such a good finisher. We've got Vals, Enrico Battalion, 3 times the winner of stages of the Giro d'Italia, and of course Matej Mohoric, an exceptional rider on all sorts of terrain. So the Bahrain McLaren team absolutely stacked here. This is such a good field, and right on cue, look at that, he's a sponsor's dream. Rafa Fowles, 2 jerseys, some products there from the team, Consummate Pro, and even got a swimming pool in their background, which I've no doubt you might dip into after this effort, Hannah. Yeah, not a bad setting for your pain cave, is it, Matt? With like you say, with the swimming pool there, very nice setting for the Spanish rider Rafael Valls. Yeah, looking good here, making just under 400 watts look very, very easy. But again, this is going to be an effort that's kind of at just below or just around time trial pace. And another attack here from one of the riders from a Bahrain McLaren. It's Dan McClay who's gone off the front again. Is he doing interval training? Is this a predetermined plan? But he's just shot off the front there again. But, well, I think it's really interesting, actually. You know, a lot of riders like to have a bit of an effort before they sort of make their main effort, don't they? They just want to test the legs. Obviously, Dan McClay did that. He's got back, recovered into the peloton, and he's gone again. He's gone a little bit early for my liking, though, for this first king of the mountain.
see now Edvald Bosenhagen coming to the fore now as he comes towards the top of this King of the Mountain map.
This is a good move, and I tell you who's just gone over the front. It's Valsleben of Alpecin Phoenix. It looks like, well, he's the very good cyclocross rider. Valswegen takes that win from Rafa Vals. Roman Ardi is in third place, and Edvald Bosenhagen in fifth place. William van Kilsbroek from CCC in fourth. So good move there by the rider from Alpecin Phoenix. Philippe Walsleben, Gianni Memish, Christian Sparagli and Mathieu van der Poel. That is the Alpecin Phoenix lineup. Very strong lineup indeed. And already we're heading towards the back end of lap number 1. There's Freddie Obet. Watch out for Freddie Obet. He is my outside bet for today. He actually rides for the Continental team of the Israel Startup Academy, but has been promoted to ride for the World Tour team for this event, and of course won at stage 1 of the Tour for All, beating some of the finest professionals in the world, and is always on Zwift. If you look at his profile on Zwift, he's won in the last couple of weeks about 10 races on Zwift, so he's really preparing for this. And our first glimpse of Mathieu van der Poel. Look at that, Hannah. He's a rider who knows his Zwift, isn't he? Already in that super tuck, saving some valuable energy.
Yeah, well, you can see the experienced Zwifters there, with Freddie Ovett also getting in the super tug. Then Mathieu van der Poel, who's spent a lot of time on this platform throughout the global pandemic. So great to see him up towards the fore on this descent. As just shortly they will have completed 1 lap of racing. They'll see 3 laps to go on the board. 27.9 kilometers to go. Van der Poel just back in the middle of that peloton, as you can see him, his name just above his avatar.
Yeah, Mathieu van der Poel, arguably the finest rider of his generation in terms of disciplines across ability to cross all disciplines. You know, he's a mountain bike champion, he's the current world cyclocross champion, took out Amstel Gold last year. I think the big question is, how far can that young rider go? So exciting to watch, and clearly has really got to grips. He hasn't been on Zwift that long, only started riding on Zwift, I think it was in November or December, and has used it to complement his cyclocross training. We've seen him race with commentators. There he is, right on cue. A lovely side profile. He knows how to get the camera angle right, doesn't he? Full on sponsor again, a sponsor's dream. Out of the saddle, high torque through those pedals at the moment, sticking out 450 watts just to stay in the field. Just shows how hard this is. This is a very difficult effort, and I think we're going to see this field thin out a little bit more. So 3 laps to go now, and a study in style there of Mathieu van der Poel. Just looks so good on the bike.
It's just elegance. It really is, poetry on a bike. It looks so comfortable, and within this peloton, despite the watts and the heart rate, looking very smooth and focused, very relaxed. And as you said before, the Alpecin Phoenix have got a very strong team alongside him as well. So great to see what they can do as a team today.
Yeah, and collectively they've got a very strong team indeed, already leading the King of the Mountains classification. Courtesy of their German rider, Valsleben. And there is Van der Poel. Dominique Godon has just moved to the front now. Several French teams are in the mix here. Total Direct Energie, B&B Hotels are also here. All of the major World Tour teams, the vast majority, should I say. As we start lap number 2, it's just worth going through the teams that are here. 92 riders in total, 23 teams. We've got Team Ineos, we've got Team Jumbo-Visma, we've got Bora Hansgrohe, we've got De Koning Quickstep, EF Pro Cycling are here, in that rather fetching pink and purple kit, Arkea Samsic, AG2R Le Mondial in the brown, white and blue kit, the aforementioned Alpecin Phoenix, home of Mathieu van der Poel. We've got Groupama FDJ, for the Israel Startup Nation, Lotto Soudal, the British rider John Gibbons amongst their number, Mitchelton Scott, we've already looked at the pain cave of Darrell-Impey, Circus Wanty Group Goubert, Fabien Duby, and a Jasper de Plus, 2 of the key riders for that squad. Cofidis are here in that very traditional kit of theirs. Watch out for Christophe Laporte, he's raced a little bit on Zwift as well. Team CCC are here in the orange. Bahrain McLaren are also here. NTT are represented by Bosenhagen, Gibbons, Tiller and Reinhardt and Jens van Rensburg. Trek Segafredo, well, their standout rider of course is the world road race champion Mads Pedersen. We've got Team Sunweb, whose key rider is Michael Matthews. We've got Direct NLG, Rally Cycling from the USA in the orange. As we look at Greg van Avermaet, the Olympic champion, well, that is that's a pain face. 400 watts, that's what 400 watts indoors looks like. That's uncomfortable, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is, isn't it? Not looking as comfortable as what we saw Mathieu van der Poel, but nevertheless, yeah, the Olympic champion here has a fine place in the centre of the peloton there. You can just see on the right of your screen his name above his avatar, sitting comfortably as we go into the next sprint point. Who's going to lead this one out? It's going to be Daryl Impey again, Matt.
It is Daryl Impey from Peter Seri. Peter Seri closing on Impey. It looks like he's got enough daylight between him and the second place rider. Great ride by the former South African road champion. Impey takes it from Seri. Rasmus Tiller in third. Carl Murphy and then Gillian van Kilsbroek. So another set of maximum points for the rider from Mitchelton Scott. Clearly, it suggests to me, I mean, this is very early days. We've got 6 stages spread over 2 weeks, but clearly, Hannah, riders have come into this, or teams have come into this with a little bit of a plan. And it looks like, but it seems to me that Mitchelton Scott have come in with an aim to play early for the green jersey competition.
Yeah, and I think, the virtual racing is no different to, in real life racing. As you can just see the results there, the bottom left of your screen. It's no different to in real life racing. You'd make a team plan, you'd study the road book, you'd study the course, you'd know exactly where all the King of the Mountains, the intermediate sprints are. You'd also know where you need to make your effort going into the finish as well. So in that respect, these riders should have done their homework beforehand. And to me, it looks like Daryl Impey and the team of Mitchelton Scott have, because also another rider up there in the points for that team was Nick Schultz as well. So, it's all those important points that go towards the team classification. It really does matter.
It certainly does. It certainly does. Just a couple of Team Ineos riders moving up there. Number 1 on his back, that's Michal Kwiatkowski. Number 4, Pavel Sivakov. Both of those riders have been active on Zwift over the last few months. And a couple of the Team Ineos races, both Kwiatkowski and Sivakov were prevalent at the front. They've got a very, very good lineup. Christian Knees as well, the former German champion, a veteran now, a real stalwart of Team Ineos, and they are rounded out by the former multiple Spanish time trial champion Jonathan Castroviejo, who again was very active when Ineos raced each other on the Yorkshire circuit a couple of weeks ago. Castroviejo going very, very early on. But again, it is interesting when you look at the type of riders that racing on Zwift might suit. I think it just takes time to get used to it. But I think what we've seen, some of the time trial specialists really like this kind of effort, because although there are spikes there, especially if the course is up and down, it generally is riding at threshold, which is something that, if you're a TT specialist, is something you're very comfortable at doing.
Yeah, and it really does suit their style of riding, their type of effort. But I think once they get
when we plan the race, we
from
try
Marco
to get as
Pinotti
many
of
riders
CCC
involved as possible from the team. So we don't have a very specific goal for the overall, but the goal is to have to give everybody the platform to take advantage of the visibility of the Tour de France. We will go with stage 1 with Greg Van Avermaet as our team leader, while in stage 2 we have 4 good riders, strong, that will look for their own chances in what I think is an open course.
Yep, good old Marco Pinotti, himself a former time trial champion of Italy, former pink jersey wearer of the Giro d'Italia as well, but now the head of one of the chief director sportifs at CCC. I think they're basically going to try and get as many riders as they can up into the mix and get a real feel for it. But Greg Van Avermaet is their out-and-out leader. So if CCC were the team to accumulate most points at the finish, it would be Greg Van Avermaet who would take that jersey. So he's the designated team leader. And just a reminder of the way things work, it is a team points classification. So the first 25 riders across the finish line will be given points, 50 points to the rider in first place, down to 1 point for 25th. So the more riders you can get in the top 25, the more chance they are of being up in the general classification. Then the yellow jersey will be given to a pre-designated rider from that team to wear in the following stage. Although, and it is a big although, there's a bit of a caveat here, because the teams change each stage and that no rider can ride more than 3 stages, the yellow jersey could end up on the shoulders of a different rider for the following stage. Without complicating things too much, the focus is on the team classification. As we hit the climb, Hannah, for the second time, they're already over that horrible steep section. They absolutely flew up that, but it is, look at this, Pavel Sivakov, the Russian sensation who finished 9th in his first ever Giro d'Italia last year, up the front, pressing the pace.
Yeah, this is fantastic. You see, they've already gone up that steep section, so that leg snapper, the stinger in the legs, has already been done. But this is a real grovel now onto this section. Although it looks flat, it still is a bit of a grippy. How can I explain it? It's just continues going uphill. Although the overall gradient is 1.8% average, it just slowly goes uphill at around 5% gradient. So it's one of those where it really does just sap the energy from the legs. You see Freddie Ovett in the middle of the bunch again there of the Israel Startup Nation. As you said before, he is riding for the Academy team, but he's made the step up for the virtual races to the World Tour team.
Look at that.
Real life there.
Indeed. Well, I've never seen a person with a double fan setup, and he's got no sleeves. I wonder what the commissaires think about that, because the riders in-game actually do have to wear socks. Their avatars do have to have socks, otherwise they get disqualified. They do have to wear helmets in-game, just like in real life. Although I think there's far less risks in riding on Zwift. But a great shot there of Freddie Ovett from Israel Startup Nation. But definitely watch out for him. He really has got to grips with racing on Zwift. And every week he seems to do either local or community races, and obviously he's pulled out that big win a few weeks ago in the Tour for All as we head towards the top of the Kingdom Mountains for the second time. Blimey, these are coming around very, very quickly indeed. It is Ben Gasteur on the front. Looks like he's going to take the win here. Ben Gasteur absolutely flying at the front for AG2R Le Mondial, but he's going to get caught at the last. And is it? It is Philipp Walsleben again for Alpecin Phoenix, who looks like he's going to take maximum points. The gap has been closed by Edvald Bosenhagen, but it is Walsleben who takes maximum points for the second time in succession. So that is maximum points for him. So good riding. And again, we're seeing this pattern starting to emerge clearly, Hannah. Teams are communicating. Teams have got a preordained plan to bring into this race to try and target particular classifications. And great riding by the German rider Alpecin Phoenix. But when you think about what he's good at, which is cyclocross, this sort of effort is going to be right up his street as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is. And it's that fast racing with the spikes, as you said, of effort. Just able to use the wheels to move up towards the front there. We start to make the descent. Guillaume van Kiersbulk from the CCC team, the teammate of Greg Van Avermaet, the Olympic champion. So this, as we said before in the women's race, if you're just joining us, this downhill section is actually one of the only points in the race where you can actually get a bit of a breather, a little bit of recovery. If you get yourself into that super tuck, you can freewheel if you're going over 57 kilometers per hour, and the gradient is minus 5%. So it's the only point where you can get a bit of respite and get a bit of a drink as well.
And that's where I think riders who've already raced on Zwift and know about that, or just ridden on Zwift, because you don't just get the super tuck in races. You can get the super tuck just out for a ride in Watopia, or especially if you're descending into the Alpes of Zwift, for example, then you're in the super tuck for a very, very long time indeed. But using that super tuck, especially on a course like this, which is up and down, you've got to be on the pedals, on the power all the time, will afford you that little bit of a recovery, which could be absolutely crucial that you get that right coming into this finish, where we saw in the women's race they carry a lot of speed, and there was a few riders that were distanced on that climb. A lot have got back in contact, but there's some big names still in this group. First shot of Ryan Gibbons as well of NTT Pro Cycling. He is the current South African road race champion. And he, again, is a rider who's adapted to riding on Zwift very well. He was third in stage one of the Tour for All, a couple of places behind Freddie Ovett, and is a very, very fast finisher indeed. As is his teammate Edvald Bosenhagen. NTT have got a really stacked team here. Two kind of big powerhouses as we look at Edvald Bosenhagen. What I forgot to do, you know what, Hannah? I forgot to look at how many kilometres he's done on Zwift, because I think he is the professional who's done most kilometres on Zwift. He does some humongous 250k rides, for example.
Yeah, he's been on Zwift for a very, very long time. I think he's actually level 50, if I'm not wrong.
I think, he is, yeah.
But I had a little recce of this course this morning, and Edvald Bosenhagen was on there. He was just behind me. So interesting that he's, come on, doing his homework, having a little look at the course of what he was going to race today. He'd give any tips as well to his teammates as well. So to check out all the pinch points, and also even just to get to know where the finish line, how far away can he sprint from, what can he sustain in a sprint. Does he have to go early? Can he kind of leave it quite late and make a jump on everyone? So interesting to see him doing a little recon as well.
And I think what we've seen in more community racings is the teams that have ridden on Zwift a lot, they're actually starting to use the lead out, and I'm wondering whether we will see a lead out, because traditionally, although we know that Edvald Bosenhagen is a very, very fast finisher indeed, what he's done in the past, a good example is when he rode as a teammate with Mark Cavendish, is a key component part of the lead out train. Quite often the last rider to drop somebody off, and I wonder who's going to be the team leader for NTT. Will it be Edvald or will it be Ryan Gibbons? But as we hear from Transport Team,
different kind of opportunity that is going to add some more excitement to the public, to the riders, to the fans. So it's a good challenge and we're ready for it. So the first stage is a flat stage, so it's a kind of dynamic stage where we're going to have teams and people attacking, and then we're going to have other teams that are going to try to control the race to arrive into the sprint. So in our team we have Edvald Bosenhagen, who is our guy for that day.
Yeah, Fernandez there, great to hear him. He's just saying that it's going to give them another opportunity to race, which is what we were discussing at the start. These riders haven't had the opportunity to race, and it's so important for any sort of elite athlete, regardless of the sport, to have the opportunity to compete. And the Zwift platform and the race that we've had, and this inaugural first Tour de France, it really is going to be the first time probably that these riders are going to get into that kind of mindset of competing, which is so important ahead of the season to come.
Yeah, it is, and as we mentioned in the women's race, if you're just joining us, it's getting into that mindset of a bike racing. We've had around 4 months now, 3-4 months without any bike racing. Getting into that mindset, into the zone, even preparing yourself for the race, all your equipment, making sure your kit, is prepared, and kind of just building yourself up. It's sometimes quite nerve-wracking, isn't it, Matt? You know as a former bike racer as well, the nerves taking to the start line as well.
Indeed, it's just again, we are absolutely whizzing through this. That was Mike Turnison, who took the win there. The hotspot sprint, and these Kingdom Mountains are coming very, very fast. So Mike Turnison takes that one from Jumbo Visma. Jumbo took the yellow jersey, the real Tour de France last year. By virtue of, I think it was the opening stage.
It was.
The road stage, yeah. So Mike Turnison, and again, I've been looking at Mike Turnison's stats on Zwift. He's won several races on Zwift. He's entered the community races. He's ridden a lot of the Tour for All unofficial races as well. So he is somebody that understands power-ups, understands when to make an effort, understands the benefits of drafting. So, and again, he is one of those riders that can deliver a lot of power, as is illustrated by him taking victory there in hotspot number 3. Turnison ahead of Edvald Bosenhagen. Gus van Hoek in third. Greg Van Avermaet, Olympic champion, there in fourth position. And Daryl Impey, who won the first one, was there in fifth place with 6 points. All of those points counting towards the green jersey classification. And of course, there's points on every intermediate sprint first 10 and at the finish line as well, as we see the slow motion replay of that win there. Very, very good sprint by Turnison in that Jumbo Visma kit. He's got a good team around him as well. Olav Koit, Owen Gilagin and Antoine Tulloch. Perhaps Antoine Tulloch perhaps more suited to tomorrow's stage. A very, very good climate indeed. But Mike Turnison will love this circuit. I think has to be one of the out-and-out favourites. Now with 14.5 Ks to go, as you see Peter Seri on the front there, Hannah, who was your pick? When looking at the riders here, it is a stacked field, but we've got all sorts of different sorts of riders, lots of punchers, some good sprinters. Who's your pick for the day?
I think my pick actually is going to have to be Edvald Bosenhagen, just because he's done that recon this morning of the course. As we mentioned before, he's been riding and racing on Zwift for many years. I did actually just get his profile up on the Zwift companion app. He's done 19,730 kilometres on Zwift, 205,000 metres of elevation as well. So I mean, it's just incredible. He knows all the the gamification sides. He knows about all the power-ups. So I'm going to go for Bosenhagen of NTT.
Yeah, Bosenhagen. I was going to go for. I've got three. I was going to go for Freddie Ovett because of just his experience. But I'm going to go for Mathieu van der Poel. I'm going to go for Van der Poel today. So that is, there you go, cards on the table, 13.7 Ks to go. And if you're just joining us, this is stage one of the first ever virtual Tour de France. We've already had a fantastic women's race, won by April Tacey of Team Drops. We've got 6 stages over the next 3 weekends, we move into France, the new Zwift World of France, next weekend and the weekend after that. But for these first two opening stages, we are in Watopia with some of the finest riders in the world for the very, very first time, taking to the roads on Zwift to battle it out for the coveted maillot jaune and, of course, the polka dot jersey, the green jersey, the best team and the best young riders. So it really is. It's everything that the Tour de France has thrown into this virtual world, and so far it's been absolutely fantastic. And we're only 1.5 races in, Hannah.
Yeah, it's been exciting already, hasn't it? You know, the racing has been non-stop, and as you said before, the intermediate sprints and the King of the Mountains.
Hi, I'm Adi Engels, Team Jumbo-Visma DS for the upcoming virtual Tour de France. Of course, we're really excited to be part of this race, although we also really look forward to do the real tour later this year. But this is a really nice alternative in July and a nice way for our riders to have some kind of competition. If you know our team, you know wherever we start, we always start to make the best of it, and that's no different in this race. And looking to the first stage, my pick would be Mike Teunissen. Of course, last year at the Tour, he won the first stage, took the yellow. He was going really strong in our own E-competition in May, and yeah, he's for sure one of my favorites.
Well, good to hear that. It's actually Adi Engels is his name. Adi Engels, one of the key directors.
Was that my pronunciation or
no?
just the spelling?
We had a little typo. I mean, blimey. I mean, when you look at the logistics of all this, I think we can afford a little typo there. But that was Adi Engels, and unsurprisingly, their man for the day. And knowing what it's like to wear the yellow jersey IRL in real life is unsurprisingly Mike Teunissen, who has, as we mentioned, been very, very active on Zwift. Well, there we go. Sweeney now moves to the front. Ryan Gibbons, Pavel Sivakov is up there. Nick Schultz, 58 k's an hour. We've only got 12.5 k's, so just around 1 lap and a third to go of this stage one of the inaugural virtual Tour de France. The field has thinned down just a little bit. We've still got some very good names in the mix. Van der Poel is up there. He's just moving to the front at the moment. Nick Schultz, Valsleben, the German, who is bossing the King of the Mountains classification so far. Your favourite is still in the mix at the head of affairs in the blue jersey for NTT. That's Edvald Boasson-Hagen. Just trying to look a little bit further down the mix. Got a couple of riders from Team Ineos in the mix as well. One of them is Jonathan Castroviejo. Pavel Sivakov is there, as is Michal Kwiatkowski. So Ineos have 3 key riders in the mix. There's several riders there. I think you can definitely see Peter Seri for Deceuninck Quickstep in that new livery this year, the white and blue kit. But the field really has thinned down here, Hannah. There's only probably about 25 or 30 riders in this front group at the moment, as we see an attack now by Ben Gaston.
Yeah, it's every time we get to the start of this King of the Mountain, it just, even if it just shells at, 1 or 2, 3 riders just from the sheer pace. Ben Gaston of AG Douar just setting the pace here. He wants to try and take maximum points, but who's this? It's Vasselberg again from Alpecin Phoenix coming up to the fore. He's won the last 2. Can he hang on?
It certainly looks like it. Always going to be just rolled on the line. Freddie Ovett just goes by the German. So Freddie Ovett putting out 12 watts a kilo from the Israel Cycling Academy. Timed his run to the line there to perfection. So Freddie Ovett from the Israel Startup Nation. Again, normally rides for the Conti team, riding for the World Tour setup because he's so good on Zwift. Big numbers and a regular winner. Ben Gaston went, I think, just a little bit too early and is now struggling to hold the wheel. So just on this very, very fast ascent. That's the thing, if you make a big effort and they go straight over the top, you need to make another effort to get back in the slipstream, don't you, Hannah?
Yeah, I mean, as you saw there, as soon as Freddie Ovett went across the line, he continued his effort, and that has, really split that peloton. He's using that super tuck. He's able to freewheel now, so he's able to get maximum recovery. He's got the 2 fans there, which is imperative to keep your body temperature as low as possible. It really does get you hot and sweaty with this indoor racing, virtual racing. Ovett just picks up the pace again. But it's almost like a little bit of a points race, isn't it, when you go over the KOM. It's kind of holding on your effort, continuing the effort, just to sign any attacks over the top. Let's try and make sure you're aware of any attacks from any other riders. We'll get a replay of that Ovett taking that by 2 bike lengths, Matt. Yeah.
Perfect timing. It looked like it was Valsleben all the way. He's going to have to set up a second place, but I still think that will keep him at the top of the rankings in the King of the Mountains classification as we head into the final lap. There is confirmation. Freddie Ovett takes the 3 points on offer. Valsleben is in second. And then we've got Harry Sweeney, a rider who actually rides for the under-23 Lotto Soudal team, and very much like Freddie Ovett, has been elevated to ride at World Tour level. And actually in real life as well, there are certain events that feeder teams or under-23 teams for these World Tour teams or continental teams riders can guest for their World Tour teams in certain races, which is absolutely wonderful. Another way to give these young riders experience of riding at the best level, the highest level in the sport. And here we are, we're into the final lap of the opening stage of the virtual Tour de France here in Watopia, rendered to look a little bit like Nice. We have one more lap to go on the Watopia Hilly reverse course. One more lap of suffering. We have one more intermediate sprint, one more King of the Mountain, and then that dash to the line on the promenade here. And Mathieu van der Poel is in the mix. Peter Seri is there. Ryan Mullen, the former double time trial and road champion of Ireland, riding for Trek Segafredo, as we get another good shot of Mathieu van der Poel. As you mentioned before, Hannah, poetry in motion.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you just look at his cadence, he always runs at a high cadence, 109 RPM, and it just looks very fluid, doesn't it? You know, there's no labouring. His upper body is very, very still and strong, wasting no energy at all. Just I was going to say, just keeping it consistent and kind of not making huge efforts and then having to back off, or he's not having to, lose the wheels. He's just keeping that consistent effort.
That's it, making sure he's in the wheels, making sure he doesn't get to the front, because when you do get to the front, obviously there's no benefit of the draft. You had to take the wind at the front, so you need to put more effort in. But the way that he's just riding here, staying in the slipstream, and we talked about it in detail in the women's race, but there is a benefit to riding in the slipstream in these races, especially in a big group. There's an energy saving of around 20 to 30%. So the algorithms in game that do replicate drafting in real life, but there's not quite the same benefit that you get to sitting on the wheel in the real world. You still do have to concentrate. But once you find your rhythm, once you find these sweet spots, you can actually save a lot of energy, and that only comes by riding on Zwift more and more. And we've seen Mathieu van der Poel regularly race on Zwift, so he really has got it, and he's adapted very, very quickly indeed. But now only 7Ks to go. Are we going to see an attack? Dalcin now from Team Rally. It moves on the front. Matteo Dalcin, a big attack, and another attack over the top from Reinhard Jenti van Rensburg coming into this next sprint round. Yes, his big move here by the South African.
Yeah, this is a big move. Dropped his power up as well, the draft boost. He's opened up a 2-second gap to the peloton, so this is really impressive. He's got Gibbons, his teammate, up towards the front as well, just patrolling the front of that peloton. 8.5 watts per kilo from the rider from South Africa. He's maintaining that effort. He's even increasing it, actually. 4 seconds now is the gap to the peloton, so this is great from Reinhard Jenti van Rensburg.
He is a very, very powerful rider indeed. A superb lead-out rider. Very, very fast at the finish. He won the overall in the Tour of Langkawi back in 2016 as well. He's exceptionally strong. He's been a regular part of this team he's been a part of the MTN team since 2015. So he's a real part of the setup, but is an amazingly reliable rider. Goes well all year round. He's a veteran at the Tour de France as well. And he's moving clear here. Has got a nice little gap. He's got about a second on Harry Sweeney, the young Australian, just trying to close the gap for Lotto Soudal. It looks like he might get rolled on the line. Can Harry Sweeney close the gap? Van Rensburg just holds on. Whew, very close indeed.
That was very touch and go, wasn't it?
It certainly was. Well, Sweeney, they've given it to Sweeney, but no, that's just the position. We'll get confirmation. It did look like it was Reinhard Jenti van Rensburg who did take the win there, but we will get confirmation as a power-up has been used by the young rider from Lotto Soudal. A nice aero power-up. A funny place to use it, but again, he might want to be getting rid of it to maybe get a power-up at the next climb. Of course, the riders get a power-up 3 times. They get it through the finish line. They get a power-up through the King of the Mountain and the hotspot sprint. So, and I think this is the race where we've seen the most concentration of power-ups. So riders really, really do need to think about how they use them. Because if you use them right, Hannah, they can really make a difference in your performance at the end of a race, but also they can help you with your recovery mid-race too. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, tactically, and if you're experienced on Zwift, it can add a lot to a rider and the team's chances. So, it's the teams who know how to use them will be at an advantage over those who don't. And on the road, the better teams and better riders who are organised, they can take the chances when they need to. You have the further power up for the KOM. You use the aerodynamic one, which is in the sprint as well. So, I know a lot of riders, sometimes they want to try and keep the power up that is favourable to them. until the end. However, I think with 3 opportunities on the course today, in my opinion, I would just use them and take advantage over the other riders.
Indeed. Well, it's rather than waste them, you can use them just to recover it. And one of the best ones to use is the van draft. It's just basically you can sit in the wheels and get an extra 50% draft benefit for 30 seconds, which could be crucial. Give you that little bit of a chance just to back off, recuperate, take a drink, let your heart rate lessen a little bit. And all these, the accumulation of these micro risks can really help towards the back end of a race when things do get very, very tasty. And there is the classification for the green jersey. Only 1 point in it. Mitchelton Scott leading NTT Pro Cycling by 1 solitary point. Very tight at the top. CCC there in 3rd with Lotto Soudal in 4th. And running out the top 10, Israel Startup Nation. So here we go. Let's have a look at who's in this group. It's a real mix of riders. I think most teams still have representation here. Ryan Gibbons is there. Ben Gastur can see Alpecin Phoenix. All the jerseys that you're familiar with in the World Tour. Good to see a couple of riders from rally cycling. Matteo Dalcin is there for rally cycling, the Pro Conti team from the United States. Here is Askey on the front. A young British rider riding for Groupama FDJ, and another one of those riders who actually rides for the Continental team, but is stepping up to ride on Zwift. But what an opportunity for the young 18-year-old here, Hannah.
Yeah, it's fantastic, isn't it? He's a first year under 23, and getting that opportunity to sort of almost guest ride for the World Tour team and show what he's capable of. He's at the front here, with only 4 kilometres remaining. It's a really impressive ride by Lewis Askey, the young British rider.
We've got Michael Rees there from Trek Segafredo with his numbers for the very first time. There's lots of firsts here. It's the first time we've ever had the Tour de France up here, but the first time we've seen bib numbers as well, which is great. Edvald Bosenhagen, we're looking at the stats on 600 watts, sat down in his little gymnasium at home there, but he's a little bit further down the line, and this is the hardest part of this climb. It pitches up just there with 7%. You can just see bottom right, that's the gradient of the climb. They've gone over the steepest part here, but Edvald Bosenhagen, just to hold the wheels here, is having to put out nearly 600 watts. This is going to be digging very, very deep into his reserves. Another rider who's there is Fabien Duby of Circus Wanty-Goubert, who's on his wheel, and the power really, well, there's some big attacks on the front, really starting to string this group out now, Hannah.
Well, you could just see the effort that Bosenhagen made there. He just made it in time before the elastic snapped to the rider from CCC. So Bosenhagen's just stayed on the right side of this split. It's Sivakov, the Russian rider from Team Ineos, the rider who's pushing the pace at the 4, with Nick Schultz of Mitchelton Scott in his wheel. So it's Sivakov doing all the damage here. You can just see the whole peloton is out, stretched out in a line. 6.9 watts per kilo, Sivakov just maintaining.
That's a good, I think he's trying to soften things up there, because Kwiatkowski now has gone to the front, the former world road champion, William Balan-Sanremo, Strada Bianca. What a versatile rider, pressing on the front now. His heart rate, 176 beats a minute, just over 6 watts a kilo. So Kwiatkowski there in the red, and now another rider from NTT moves through to the front. That's Edvald Bosenhagen. Here we go. These are the maximum power outputs in the first 25k. Look at that. Greg Van Avermaet 939, Edvald 910. I think we're going to see some 4-digit numbers as we head towards the finish here, but some big numbers being put out there. And unsurprisingly, the effort's been put out at the front. There's a couple of power-ups have been dropped. One of the riders there dropping a ghost power-up, which makes them invisible for 10 seconds. That's my favourite power-up, I must admit. That's been used. Probably not much help, because we've got one more opportunity. When they go through the King of the Mountains arch, which is in only just, about 600-700 metres time, they'll get another power-up, and all these riders will be praying, I think, for an aero power-up. So an elite group is now forming at the front. Sivakov, Hannah, presses on hard, I think trying to reduce this group even further as we head towards the finish.
Yeah, yes, we can just see the teamwork. Kwiatkowski on his wheel there of Sivakov, as Mikhail Kwiatkowski, the Polish rider, starts to unleash his effort. The 30-year-old, he's rode 6 Tour de France in real life. This is his first virtual one. He's going towards the King of the Mountain arch, but it's Philip Wildspin who's taken the victories in the King of the Mountain so far. Can he hold on and take the maximum points, Matt?
It certainly looks like it. Valsleben just takes that one very, very close. One of the riders, I think it was Gavin Mannion, was there Nick Schultz also, well, he moves to the front. Remember, we're now heading into the finish line. This is the opening stage of the virtual Tour de France. We already had the women's stage, and now the men, they're careering down at this final descent. They're going to be carrying a lot of speed here with only 1,600 metres to go. It is the team that accumulates the most points that will actually put one of their riders into the yellow jersey. We've had the green jersey and the polka dot jersey battle out on the road, but it is the coveted maillot jaune that these riders want, and the glory of being victorious on the opening stage. Which team will carry the yellow jersey into stage 2, and which rider will win? We've got some absolute superb riders in here. There's a slow motion. Valsleben of Alpecin Phoenix takes maximum points again. He, I think, for sure will lead the King of the Mountains classification, but crucial now, who is going to take the win on the stage, because we're heading into the finish very, very rapidly indeed.
Yeah, we are, and it's very interesting to see Rasmus Fossmann-Tiller up towards the front, Edvald Boasson-Hagen, Ryan Gibbons as well, all from the same team of NTT Pro Cycling Team, so they're starting to form a little bit of a lead out. Kwiatkowski up towards the front as well. He's used his aero power up very early there, as we see Guillaume van Kleursbut from CCC come to the format.
Indeed, well, we got only 300 metres to go. Van Kleursbut goes. Kwiatkowski is just coming up. It looks like Edvald Boasson-Hagen surges to the front. Ryan Gibbons with the power up as well. Gibbons goes through to the front, overtakes Boasson-Hagen, but coming very, very late as well is Coke, but it looks like it's Gibbons. Gibbons takes the win. The South African road race champion takes the win on the opening stage of the virtual Tour de France here in Watopia. The crowd are going nuts. What a fine, fine win for Ryan Gibbons of NTT. Absolutely superb turn of pace and a consummate power up usage as well. Absolutely superb as he winds down. Ryan Gibbons is the winner of the opening stage.
Well, that was sensational, wasn't it? Won by half a second. That really was perfection from Ryan Gibbons. Great lead out though from his teammate Edvald Boasson-Hagen. Gibbons using the aero power up perfectly there.
Well, that was absolutely superb. You know, got the power up that he needed and took it perfectly. I wonder if it was a kind of, there he is in that, like a big smile there from Ryan Gibbons in that South African Road Champions jersey. He looks, well, I wouldn't say he looks delighted. He looks absolutely spent, emptied himself out on the road there, but rode a very, very good race. We didn't see him too much. He was up all near the head of affairs. We saw a few softening blows by Edvald Boasson-Hagen, but that was a superb win. And we've seen Ryan Gibbons race very, very well on the Zwift platform. As we said before, third in the Tour for All Stage 1, and now victorious on the opening stage of the virtual Tour de France. Whew, take us with the slow motion. There it is.
Yeah, as we just see the finish shot, he actually won by around 3 or 4 bike lengths there, so very impressive from Pierre-André Cote from the Rally Cycling Team, the Canadian rider, 23 years of age, who took the second place. But very, very impressive. Ryan Gibbons, only 25 years of age, and there you can see the round-off of the top 10 map.
Indeed, confirmation that Ryan Gibbons of NTT takes the win ahead of Cote. Good ride by the rider from Rally. They'll be happy with that. Nick Schultz is third for Mitchelton Scott. Then we have Mathieu van der Poel, fourth place. So consistent. Freddie Ovett, one of the pre-race favourites, in fifth for the Israel Startup Nation. Edvald Boasson-Hagen racking up the points for NTT in sixth. Dalsin there again for Rally, so good packing of riders by Team Rally. Sweeney there for Lotto in ninth. Greg Van Avermaet, the Olympic champion, in ninth for CCC, and Michal Kwiatkowski rounds out the top 10 for Team Ineos. Well, what a mix. You've got some of the finest riders in the world with some of the most interesting up-and-coming riders in the world all racing together here on Zwift. That is a fantastic top 10. But again, let's have a look at the last few hundred metres here. Perfect power-up drop. And it looks as if Gibbons just actually went into the slipstream. He left it very late, didn't it? It looked like Kwiatkowski went long. But just talk us through the last 250 metres.
Yeah, it's actually quite surprising. Kwiatkowski, went very early and dropped his aero power up early as well, but didn't seem to be at full throttle, and it just meant that Gibbons and Boasson-Hagen and Cote of Rally Cycling were able just to use his the draft and the slipstream just to get round Kwiatkowski, and it was just a drag to the finish, and Cote could just never get round Gibbons. Gibbons is a very, very strong sprinter, so this type of finish on Zwift in a virtual world suits him down to the ground, as long as he can get over the King of the Mountain, which he did perfectly in a great position. yeah, he took it by 4 or 5 bike lengths.
He certainly did. Perfect timing. And not an ordinary sprint in terms of a traditional flat lead out, because the effort that the riders had to put in just to stay in contact over the climb, to be in contention for the sprint, made that a real long drawn out affair. They would have pretty much hit above threshold going for that sprint at the top of the climb, or just to stay in the wheels. A little bit of an opportunity to recover, or even just to move up and then to open up your sprint. That made for a very, very taxing last couple of kilometres on this opening stage. Well, I don't know about you, Hannah. I've thoroughly enjoyed the opening 2 stages of the opening two stage ones, as we say. We had the women earlier on, and we've just seen the men. Absolutely fantastic advert for this first ever history-making coming together of the Tour de France and Zwift. I mean, what are your overall thoughts of how it's gone?
I just think it's been brilliant. I think it's been so enthralling, the action. It's been fast and furious, and it's just been, it's not been the same team or the same rider dominating. We really have had a wide range of in the men's race and the women's race. It's been fantastic to see some of the riders who actually might not have ever been on Zwift before really taking it to some of the experienced riders as well. So overall, I think, as you said, history has been made with the very first virtual Tour de France on Zwift, and it's been very, very exciting. Into stage 2 tomorrow.
Indeed.
Play for.
All to play for tomorrow. We'll talk a little bit about stage 2 tomorrow, but it is a hilly one. And as I said, there'll be a different kind of perm of riders. So let's say, for example, let's assume that NTT are now the virtual leaders. That yellow jersey won't go onto the shoulders of any of the riders in the squad today, because we have a completely different squad, because the course is different. This suited the puncheurs, the sprinters today. Tomorrow, well, it's a mountain stage. So looking at the lineup for NTT, for example, they've got Lou Menkes, Ben O'Connor, Gino Maida and Stefan de Bod. So completely different lineup. And I think we will see teams that it is going to be quite literally horses for courses. We've got a little bit of everything. We've got flat to rolling courses, and we do have some big mountains as well. And then, well, the jewel in the crown for me is the fact that Zwift has rendered the Champs-Élysées in-game as well. So the final stage, stage 6, for both the men and women, will be up and down the Champs-Élysées in a couple of weeks' time. So I hope that you'll stay with us for the next couple of weeks. 2 races every weekend. Stage 2 tomorrow. Then we have stages 3 and 4 next weekend. And then the final weekend, we have Mont Ventoux up to Chalet Reynard. Cannot wait for that. And then the final stage, which will basically determine, of course, which team come out victorious and which team claims the Maillot Jaune. So much to play for. And of course, Hannah, you can ride these courses yourself. Talk a little bit about that. Let's get everybody involved. They need to ride the virtual chapter tours, and I'm going to do one tomorrow morning. I'm going to nail my colours to the mast. I'm riding tomorrow morning. I'm going to get up early. Oh, let's go to our winner, Ryan Gibbons.
Oh, truly, truly overwhelmed. I mean, it's such a great initiative, and it's really exciting to have something like this. I bet everyone's been missing a lot of racing. I know we have, and to be not only part of it, but to win the first stage, it's truly special. Yeah, a very, very tough route. So that final climb, cresting that 2K to the finish. So I think everyone's pretty toast at the top of that, and then kind of saving a little bit for the downhill, and then fortunately having a power up, I could go. Quite a fast run in, so I had to go quite early. But yeah, just once I went, I knew I had to keep going. So quite a long sprint, but yeah, happy to put it off. There's no respite, like you say, it's not close to the length as a normal Grand Tour stage, but in a Grand Tour, it's not flat out racing from start to finish. There's a lot of times where you can kind of recover and you can have a chat with your friends, kind of thing, where kind of from when you clip in to the finish line, it's absolutely full gas. And it's also it comes down to pure power. So yeah, it's really, really ruthless, very, very tough. Not one easy second in that race. So glad it's finished. Thank you so much.
There we go. Ryan Gibbons, absolutely delighted. and obviously, crucially, got the power up at the right time. But even more importantly, just showing the skill level he has. It was the way he used the power, the timing. We timed it to perfection. He clearly had very, very good legs. But there we go. Confirmation of the team winner. It is NTT. And look at that, Hannah. One solitary point, just nipping Rally by a point. So it will be NTT Pro Cycling who take the Maillot Jaune into the final stage. So into stage 2, should I say. Absolutely superb. And there we go, the avatar of the NTT team moving around, hovering, just narrowly avoiding that pelican, or was it a seagull, or was it a velociraptor? I'm not too sure. But before we wrap things up, Hannah, let's talk a little bit about the virtual Elapsed Tour. I was cut short 2 minutes ago, but the Elapsed Tour, it is part of the Tour de France. It's just we love to see the pros racing, but importantly as well, it's about getting the community involved, getting out on Zwift and riding the L'Etape, isn't it?
Yeah, anyone can take part in the Elapsed Tour. Events take place every 2 hours, so if you've been inspired and you've been motivated watching this racing, you've got an hour until the next one goes off at 5 o'clock British summertime. And yeah, they're every 2 hours. It's not a race, it's just for fun, but you know, go and test yourself, and you can ride all the stages coming up. And 30 kilometers is this stage 1 for you, so yeah, it's a fantastic way to get the community involved, go and challenge yourself, and yeah, see what the pros have been riding.
Yeah, I'll certainly be doing that myself as we look at the green jersey classification. Again, NTT top the rankings there. Great riding, consistent riding. So NTT will have a rider in the green jersey tomorrow. Mitchelton Scott in second place with 52 points, and the CCC team in third with 39. So good riding across the board for NTT. They take the individual stage win. They are going to be in the yellow jersey moving into stage 2, and they'll also be in the green jersey as well. So superb riding by that squad. Worth name checking the entire squad. They did work collectively as a good unit. Ed Balbersen-Hagen in the top 10 as well. Brian Gibbons, the winner, the South African road race champion. Rasmus Tiller and Reinhard Jensi van Rensburg, who of course went for those intermediate sprints. And of course, the intermediate sprints, the points towards the green jersey classification aren't just at the intermediate sprints, at the finish line as well. So everybody chipping in to that rather big points tally. Very shortly, we should find out who's in the Kingdom Outages, but I think it's going to be Wildsleben, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. He was very, very consistent with those. And interesting, 4 years ago it was NTT Pro Cycling taking the yellow jersey on stage 1 with Mark Cavendish, wasn't it? So they take back another yellow jersey in a virtual platform.